What's up, YouTube? Today we have with us Khryseis0529, an amazing streamer from twitch.tv. She does mostly variety streaming and single player playthroughs. Make sure to check her out. And tonight, we're going to talk about something else. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Let's Play Death Ray. I'm David.
I'm Jake.
And I'm Kyle.
And why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, ma'am, and tell people where they can find you?
Everybody, I'm Khryseis0529, and I am just an affiliate streamer over here on Twitch. I do have all the standard socials, so you're welcome to check me out on Instagram. It's mostly dogs, some amateur photography, and otherwise food pictures. Let's be honest, that's what it's for. And of course, Twitter, where you can get a little bit more insight into my overall, I guess, like psyche and opinions, because that's what Twitter's for. Otherwise, you can catch me doing a variety of things on Twitch. Rather enthusiastically, I primarily focus on first playthroughs that I've never done before, usually story games. Criteria are literally just good soundtrack, good story, great aesthetic, check, check, and check. I know you've all been there before, and it's nice to have that first experience again. So feel free to check me out on Twitch at Khryseis0529 at any point in time. So thanks so much.
Awesome. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and get right into this. We have a bunch of questions prepared for you. I've actually kind of been prepping to have you on ever since we chatted the other day in Jordan's stream. So that's gonna make me sound like a creepy stalker, but it's okay. I'm gonna say it. Anytime I have like a really good, like in-depth conversation ever since we started doing this podcast with a Twitch streamer, I go and I make a note and like write down kind of my opinions of that person and whether or not we want to bring them on and like get to know them. So
No,
yeah.
that's fair. I appreciate that I piqued your curiosity so early and that you then further invested. Like, I know that's a huge compliment. I really appreciate that. So thank you so much for having me here.
Yeah,
I just see
and thanks for
David
not running
going
away
and-
like everybody else.
Oh, no. I'm definitely not like that. I mean, if you, like you said, like, you ran into me in Jordan's chat and, you had a chance to interact with me kind of, over a period of time now. And yeah, that's not really my vibe. I kind of have time for everybody. I mean, as many as, I can kind of feasibly handle. But
Right.
yeah, no, absolutely. Anybody who I find interesting, I make time for, right? So you guys, I was like, LP, of course. Now obviously I know that it was you, David, but yeah, I was like, oh yeah, of course, like I have time for LP. Like sign me up. Let's go.
Right. No, and we appreciate it, and we appreciate you being here. So I pardon me. Jiminy Christmas. I have bad allergies and they're kicking my butt today. So I noticed the first thing I kind of wanted to talk about is you put down that you're a political scientist. Have you actually worked in that field and used
Yeah.
your Oh, so you've actually gotten to use your degree, unlike the rest of us who just sit around and get the degree and then don't use it.
Okay,
Yeah.
David.
Yeah. All of us over here just like staring at the paper on our walls, like, I mean, during an apocalypse, I can burn it for fuel, but other than that, yeah, no, I have been extremely fortunate. So not only did I kind of remain in the field of academics, I also worked as a policy analyst. So I've had several really incredible opportunities passed along to me. I also did some really neat internships where I took it kind of into the business world, especially for people who I guess the politest way to put this, were looking to expand their diversity footprints and be a little bit more involved regarding evolving policies around corporate responsibility. So, what their policies looked like revolving like around their environmental footprints and kind of closing the gender pay gap, stuff like that. So, how could they reasonably address this? So most of my work has been largely around the security field, so like the fun stuff was all the stuff I just mentioned. That was like easy, like I could talk about all that stuff. The other part of my work largely has revolved around issues of human security, right? So my first degree, I went to a university that was a military college and was preparing me to have a career as an intelligence analyst in the United States military. Unfortunately, I got lupus, bit by a tick. Take those ticks very seriously. I got Lyme, I got lupus, everything got derailed. And so I just ended up being an academic because what the heck else are you going to do when you can't go work at the Pentagon? So, yeah.
Holy shit.
I know. I had a plan.
David did not expect that.
Yeah, I had a whole plan. I had a whole plan, and then I ran into a bug.
Literally, a bug.
What the
Literally.
hell? That is
Yeah.
so insane. Also, Jesus Christ, you're smarter than all of us.
Oh, no. I definitely think that intelligence is measured differently for all people. Like in my experience, I find that some of the brightest people that I have ever met actually have an incredible intuition for life stuff, right? Life skills,
Oh yeah.
practical application. And so, people who are I tend to get along with people who are more tactically minded than strategically minded. So, you come across people who are like conventionally really, really smart, quote unquote, is in the way that we regard intelligence normally. I would say that those people tend to be more strategically minded. Um, I'm actually more tactically minded. So my responses and adaptations tend to be faster. I adapt well, I cope well. So that for me has always been an advantage, right? In as far as the application of my skills, how can I necessarily um adapt in a rapidly evolving environment, right? And so
Right.
like for me that was something that I really focused on. So obviously we all have to think strategically at times, whether that is planning what I'm going to have for dinner because I'm at the grocery store and I have to think this through and I had made no plans previously, regret. Or if it comes down to saying, okay, well, we have plan A moving forward, the consequences are thus. So what are we gonna, how can we mitigate any sort of consequence that might otherwise like detract from the overall success of the mission? So that sort of thing. Yep.
That's interesting. I I've never thought about it like but it's I guess cuz I've spent the last almost decade dealing with I guess looking at personalities and breaking personalities down into I'm sure you've seen like the 4 color uh communication styles and things like that. Uh so I guess I never really thought about breaking it down into like strategic thinkers versus tactical. I'm always looking at people as how emotional they are versus like how steeped in tradition and logic and that, and breaking them into.
Wait.
Yeah.
So, where do I fit on that, Giraffe? I'm curious.
Kyle, you are more than likely, I would bet that you are a strong, probably a strong gold with orange right behind it, which is rare. Those people are very rare, but they do exist. Uh, and a lot of those tendencies can be taught. Um, and we kind of teach ourselves and they become coping mechanisms. Our communication style can absolutely shift based upon uh, our worldview and things that happen to us. Mine has shifted since I've started doing security work and things like that. I used to be very green and gold all the way, and now the green has kind of started to subside, and the blue or emotion uh, thinking has creeped in a lot more, given just what I do for work and also having a child changes the way you see the world. Um,
Fair.
but
Yeah,
yeah, no,
absolutely.
super. Sorry that I did not expect that answer, and that's an amazing story. Like it's awful, but it's like you never hear things like that. Like I don't know.
Oh no.
It's
I was one of those people that was just set to go beyond my course in life. And there was
uh-huh.
really not a reason, that I would have been derailed.
Right.
Um, and so it was just one of those kind of like freak things that happened in the universe. I was also someone who did all the right things. I kept my
Right.
boots bloused and I always followed the rules, right? I do
Mhm.
love a good set of rules. But so it's not like nobody was just out, being like, let me lay in this field of tall grass,
Hmm.
in the near nude while I take in, the summer equinox. No, no, no. Okay, that is not what happened. Also, yes, I will say water is it is there is a different A sound. Yes, people get confused. Um, but yeah, so yeah, no, one little tick bite in my whole life was like, pew. But to be fair, I have really, when we talk a little bit, about like kind of the emotional intelligence, of a person, which does kind of grow and develop different, and the way that we construct our worldview, is being so impacted, right, by the way that we also experience the things in our lives. For me, at first, obviously, I was just upset and angry and frustrated, and I didn't know what to do and what the next step was, and but growing right into kind of a new role and a different type of identity has been, I think, overall a net positive for me. It definitely allowed me to increase, I think, my emotional intelligence in a way that I didn't think I would have otherwise approached the same way, because it wouldn't have been necessary. It wouldn't have been necessary for me to develop those same sorts of soft skills. It wouldn't have been necessary for me to kind of to culture myself that way. I think just that because the environment that I was really very steeply embedded in was not lending itself towards those sorts of changes. Um, but now, I just feel that as a person, just a little bit more complete, a little bit more whole as a result of having kind of gone out. And I mean, I had already had a lot of opportunities, already traveled, done all the things that people like, expand your worldview. Yes, done that, did it, fine, check. But did I have the same sort of appreciation? No. Um, so was I humbled by my experience, and that absolutely helped me develop and grow? 100%. That was what was key for me.
That is a remarkable amount of introspection, and I love hearing that because so many people try not to do that, especially when there's a derailing. I guess specifically people that I deal with, people in my region. There's kind of this stereotypical tough guy cowboy mentality that still exists.
Mm,
And so rather than becoming introspective when trauma happens or things are upset, we just kind of stuff it and put it back on the shelf and don't look at it and ignore it rather than
mm.
actually growing from it most of the time. It's very refreshing to talk to people who actually are, look at themselves, kind of where the path is. I see you laughing, Jacob. You know I'm right though.
Oh yeah, no, for sure.
You're like, no, no, no. I live here. You're not wrong. I know.
It is frustrating sometimes.
Yeah.
But that's so wild. Obviously I'm sure you can't get into any like specifics of jobs you've held in this field.
Mm,
Um, so I didn't go into any of my questions about that as much as I
sorry.
have them. No, it's fine. It's fine. I totally get it. I can't talk about my work either, so I get it.
You know. You
Yeah.
know.
Uh, but what I do want to know is if you could do anything in that field right now,
Mm.
no limitations, anything you wanted to do, what would you put that to use?
I would definitely like my, I guess, ongoing kind of goal and passion is that I would really like to work against kind of the global human trafficking.
Okay.
So I've always kind of invested a lot of my time in learning about issues of human security. There was a lot of crossover. So where my undergraduate studies focused primarily on, so I'm 31, right? So for me, obviously, when 9/11 happened, right, this was incredibly impactful. Like Bush doctrine, right, changed the way that the world was operating, right? And it shifted the focus of sort of the political theater of the world
Right.
back onto the Middle East, um, in a way that had kind of been shifting around Asia, and like that's a whole nother thing. And obviously, blah blah blah. Like it sounds like, we all have some background in this. So like, we could just sit here and just be like, well, let's just regurgitate all of our knowledge and like rub each other's brains. But like, I'm going to try to keep that to a minimum out of respect. And so, yeah, I think it was just one of those moments where going to one of the top like military colleges, in the country, like we're always like top cadet. Everyone's like, oh, West Point, Annapolis. I'm like, have you heard of this tiny place in the mountains of North Georgia? Because we literally are the top cadets every year, like every year. Yeah, so people are just like, really? There? And I'm like, I know, it's shocking, but there you will find us. It's where the mountain rangers do their training. It's where they're located. It's this tiny town called Dahlonega, Georgia. It's about an hour north of Atlanta.
Mm.
Middle of the mountains, middle of nowhere. There's nothing there but Camp Frank D. Merrill, the university, and the location of the very first gold rush in America. It predated California by 20 years. So yeah, anyway, fun facts. But yeah, so like I went to this university that was incredibly focused on hard stories, right? And security issues and terrorism. But not necessarily looking at terrorism from a constructivist standpoint. It was definitely realism all the way. I mean, we're talking like causes of war, Mearsheimer, hard, 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 hard. And for those of you who aren't political scientists, I know this doesn't mean a lot. It's spicy, it's overwhelming. Pick biology. Okay. It's like just pick biology. You will have a job. Um, and so it was just as the program was evolving, right? Because there were other aspects, right? So you had to study, international relations, but you had to be a dual major, right? So you had to pick a regional area of study to dual major in. It was not a choice. Um, So I picked East Asia because it was one of the kind of lesser studied regions, and our Sino program is different, right? So we have a whole program dedicated to China. We have an entire program dedicated to the Middle East, a whole separate thing for, South America and Africa and Europe. And basically, our East Asian studies specifically cover the Northeastern Asia, right? So specifically Korea and Japan. Um, I obviously also delved into Southeast Asia, but that's like a separate thing. But yeah, so like while I was there, I was just like, you know what? Actually, I'm gonna get in contact with guys who have a little bit more intersectionality, right? So I focused a little bit more on sociology. I focused a little bit more on, even though I was doing comparative security studies and really focused on the future of cybersecurity, which nobody was talking about like 12 years ago. Um,
Right.
should have been. Okay. We told you. We saw this coming. All of us who are over here writing papers, trying to get published, locked behind paywalls, okay? All of us were like, but did you read my publication? Did you check that out? No? Oh, because you had to pay $3.99 to download that PDF? No, that's fair. I'm broke too. Reasonable. You know what? Let me send it across. You know what? Let me just send it. Yeah, so I was in a program that was really, really, really focused on um, hard security issues. But I personally, circling back to your question, was a little bit more interested in how the security issues that we see from the human perspective, right? Issues of water security, right? So I looked at issues of riparian rights between states. For example, of the 11 armed conflicts that Israel has been involved with its neighbors in, the past 20 years, right? 9 of them were over water. Water. Right? So the Jordan River is a huge contentious issue. Nobody thinks about it. And I'm just like, well, they live in the middle of the desert. You think water would be important? Oh, no, we're not going to talk about that? Oh, okay. Just don't mind me. I'll just hold my questions for the end. Actually, this is a comment more than a question. Sit the down. Okay, so yeah, so I just was kind of looking at a lot of other issues, right? And focusing on the Korean Peninsula primarily. I speak Korean. It's like my weird secret power. Because I lived in Korea for an extended period of time because the US government considers Korean to be a critical language. So go do stuff and things. Yeah, so I lived there for quite some time. And yeah, I just had really kind of an up close look at a lot of the issues in the region. I also spent some time looking at the issue in East Timor and the civil war going on there. So that's what took me kind of into Southeast Asia. Yeah, so like I guess peace and conflict studies, if you want to put like the light spin on what it is that I look at and do. But basically, I guess how to not kill each other is the like layman's version of what I would study and write on and why.
Makes sense.
How not to kill each other, and I feel like that's the only skills I have.
This happens to be my specialist subject.
But-
Yeah, no. Well,
Uh,
as you know, there's a big difference, right? So, once you get in there, you accomplish whatever objective A was, right?
Right.
When objective B is ambiguous, right? What is statecraft? What is nation building? That's nobody writes that in the brochure when you
No.
sign up. And they're like, hey, so you need to build this school. Do you know anything about running a school? No? Okay, great. Oh, you need to build this hospital. Do you know anything about what we're going to need in these value chains to make this happen? No? Okay. Oh, this country has a government, but no governance, which are two very different things. Oh, okay. So I can now see why we've been here for ever.
Yeah.
Just checking. But yeah, and I have literally, utmost respect. Come from a military background. My every generation of males before me, I'm the only one that's a generation of all girls. Served. I would be serving if it were not for my health condition. So, I find it very relatable, but I also find that, the problems and things like that are kind of the same things that we've been struggling to address for generations.
Yeah.
So it's one of those really tough things. So it's one of those where I was like, well, I'm gonna go into political science. If I could do anything in my field, it would definitely be addressing human security issues, the I guess continued downward spiral of human insecurity, and what that looks like. So, food, water, shelter, but some of those things are a little bit more complex. For example, you look at women's rights, on the Asian subcontinent. What does that mean? Well, how can we address that? Well, actually, public toilets would be a huge step forward. They produce 73 like metric tons of waste every day in the streets. How is that connected to, violence against women and children? Actually, it's absolutely connected. So
Okay.
it's like kind of backtracking and taking those sorts of things apart. So like, yeah, that's the stuff that I can talk about, that I write on and that I do and that I'm interested in. So that's probably would be what I would do full time if I could.
Yeah, I'm just gonna give you the crown now. Like, you're a better person than I am. No, but that's so
Absolutely.
that's amazing. And it's so crazy for me to be talking to somebody who actually knows and gives a shit about this stuff. I spend most of my time when not talking to these two, talking to a lot of people who are very, for lack of a better term, selfish. It's one of the reasons why I love talking to streamers so much. We have met so many people. We've only talked to like 11 people so far on this show, but we've met so many people who are actually thinking outside of their little four walls, which is so crazy because Twitch, there's so many people out there who are like, you have to be narcissistic to be a streamer. But every streamer that we've talked to actually has a thought process beyond their own four walls, which is amazing because the people that we talk to and that we're surrounded with on a constant basis do not. Breath of fresh air.
Yeah, I'm glad. I'm glad. I think that in any sort of creative space, there is a certain amount of ego, right? That's just going to be true because I think that, when you're creating something, it's a manifestation of your personal vision, right? What you wanted to see, right? So this is your space. You guys have been at this for years, right? So I know even though you only have had like 11 guests, you just said, but I thought you guys have been kind of active for a long time. You're very familiar with I guess the concept of what's going on here. And so, at some point, you guys had all kind of had some sort of consensus on what's happening. You decided, you've got your three matching Hawaiian shirts, which Jake,
Yeah, Jake.
I know.
Jake.
I'm a disappointment.
She's letting everybody down. But these are the sorts of moments where you're like, you know what this is kind of doing and saying something about us, whether it's something fun, whether it's something serious, whether it's something profound, what's silly, it doesn't matter, right? And that is a choice, right? Where you're actually choosing to manifest something about yourself. So like there is ego involved, but I think that, if we can remove like the negative connotation of ego from that understanding in order to make that make sense, I think that that's probably a less toxic way of looking at it. Obviously ego is a problem on the platform in creative spaces generally. You can't go to an open mic night where you don't run into like, oh, it's that guy, oh, he's back. Has anyone told him? No. Okay, you know what, we should just go to the bar and get drinks. Then now's a good time.
There you
Now's a
go.
good time.
Solution: alcohol.
Drown it out. Literally drown it out.
Yeah, I mean it is a social lubricant for a reason. Uh,
And I think with
Oh.
streaming, on top of the creative side of things, you also have it is a bunch of small business owners, and there is sort of that it's a big thing. Like having taken business classes, like I was forced to. Well, like the whole self-interest first mantra is like a big thing in that community. So I think it's just the combination of these two different types of toxicity coming together and sometimes boil over in a pretty ways.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I think that's exactly it, and it's interesting too because it's a space where you have hobbyists and business owners and narcissists and sort of philanthropists crammed all together, doing the same thing and allegedly competing against each other within their mindset. And so it creates this weird sort of spiral, if you will, of uh, I guess constant attacks and self doubt and just some crazy unhealthy mentalities that I have witnessed from people. Like I'm really happy that we're so different from everyone that I've seen in this space because of the way we approached it and came into it, because I could not, knowing myself, I could not handle the amount of psychological turmoil that you see so many of these streamers who are trying to get caught in that spiral go through. Like I would have quit. I would have experienced that. I don't know. It's wild.
It is wild. I mean, I as someone who just kind of boops along, right? Like I this month, I guess, is my 1 year anniversary, quote unquote, on Twitch. And
Nice.
I haven't hit 1,000 yet followers. I think I'm at like 900 and something. I don't even know. Um and my viewer average is like less than, I think it's at about like 19 or something. It's like just under 20. And I only stream like 2 days a week. I just took an entire month off. Like,
Yeah.
I really am very casual about it. And I think that it allows me in some ways to kind of stay above a lot of the like mumbo jumbo, right? That I'm not interested in. I don't have a lot of time for um, you know, doing a lot of data analysis as part of my research. I'm kind of like, if people really understood these metrics and not just like people sit around kind of trying to explain the metrics to you like they do on Twitch
Hmm.
Talk or whatever they call it, but like if people genuinely understood data and they understood how to use data and how to create meaning from data, then they would see that actually, like, look, sometimes you end up on the end of a trend before you know it, right?
Right.
I actually have a really good example about that. My first foray into Twitter was a disaster. I almost just never even got started, and it was because an IRL friend of mine was streaming on Twitch and he was like, "Hey, come drop your Prime sub." And I was like, "I don't know anything about this, but sure, like I'm supportive, I'll do that." And so, I was just kind of watching, and that obviously led me into trying to learn a little bit more about the platform, and zero thought of streaming. I was just didn't want to be an idiot. And So I had noticed, right, that Twitch had just dropped a new policy, right, regarding harassment, sexual harassment, like aggravated sexual behavior, stuff like that. And then not a few hours later, they kind of simultaneously dropped the news that they were discontinuing their association with Dr. Disrespect. Um, Twitch also has kind of a history of dropping policy adjustments at the same time as they do setting an example. Now, I understand that there's a whole legal battle going on here. There's discussion of the contract and blah, blah, blah. Whatever the circumstance, it's irrelevant. Twitch basically made their stance about what happened very clear by choosing to strategically drop a policy adjustment while also simultaneously publicly disassociating themselves from someone who has been problematic on the platform, regardless of whether or not there's a new reason. And by choosing to associate those 2 points, right? That's what Twitch has done. So I, as someone who is like, I'm really glad that they made this adjustment. I don't really like this guy. Had went and found out a bunch more about him, was like, he's pretty problematic, this a personal opinion, but I find that the norms that he reinforces to be problematic, the tropes that he reinforces to be problematic, and that if we're all talking about being in a space that's trying to normalize, a better environment, then like he's the opposite of that.
Yeah.
And that, as far as taking social responsibility for entertainment and what that value reflects, right, about us as a society, that we should be aware that something like that is not a positive reflection and we shouldn't reinforce it, right? Now, obviously, he's massive and huge and ridiculous, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't care. I tweeted my very first tweet about this association that I saw, and I was like, oh, I think that's really interesting. It had 63,000 engagements
Mm-hmm.
in 10 minutes because I was on the front end of a trend, right?
Uh-huh.
Didn't realize that this was happening. Didn't realize that this is how, Twitter worked. I didn't even have a personal Twitter, right? Because as you know, like you have to really very closely control your personal social media when you're in certain types of fields.
Yep.
And like just didn't even have one, like literally non-existent. Had never looked into it. And all of a sudden I was like, I want to crawl under a rock and die. What is happening? Yeah, so I deleted everything, but obviously it led to I just shut my whole Twitter account down for like 3 months. I was just like, I don't know what's happening. This is horrendous. I just was like, oh, I dislike. Yeah, because I didn't really understand how it worked. And and sometimes that sort of thing just happens, right? It was completely unintended and it didn't in any way benefit me. It was nothing but toxicity and
Oh,
garbage.
yeah. No.
I mean, horrible, horrible things. So beyond that, obviously, then when I, had completely wiped the slate and came back, I was then just like, huh, that was what? Like if you probably, because I mean, obviously some tweets will still exist. So if you were to scroll all the way down to the bottom,
Right.
right, you could still probably see parts of those conversations where I at first had decided to engage with these people and then afterwards was like, you know what, this is pointless. This is a non-starter. This is a non-argument. This is ridiculous. I didn't know that about Twitter at the time. So I was just like very hurt by all of these attacks. I was like, are you people all dumb? Like, can't you see this? Wait, what do you mean I have blank staring eyes that just look like there's nothing behind them? That's so rude. Anyway.
Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, that was like the most gentle of all the attacks that I received. But
I can
I'm sure.
imagine. I can imagine.
yeah, it was just one of those things. So, I think that people can get really caught up in grind culture. I've
Oh.
always really stood against that, even in IRL stuff. Like if your salary says that you should work 40 hours a week for X amount of pay and your expectation is just get your job done and you can do that within 40 hours, do not be there for 60 hours just because next door is.
So this is interesting because this leads into one of the classes that I actually teach on a regular basis is multi-generational workforce and
Mhm.
sort of the values that each generation holds and how it kind of influences the next, and how it influences. Uh, I I have a weird mixture of. I've been a martial artist since I was like 6 years old. So I'm very discipline and hard work are kind of bred into me. On top of our grandfather, that was kind of his big thing. The saying he used to always use was, doesn't matter if you're the CEO or the ditch digger, be the best damn ditch digger you can. So I had to learn as I grew older how to balance that sort of old school ideology of, if the person next door is working until 9:59, you better be there till at least 10. The old Gen X and baby boomer ladder climbing mentality.
Mm.
And
Tough.
I think that's part of, though, growing up with that is why we've never really fallen into, like, we do a lot of stuff. We are busy
Mm.
constant with
Mhm.
content. And I'm always on social media. I run all of our social media presence, other than like our side projects. Jake does that. But
Mhm.
but I made a discipline, and I made a schedule. I made something that works for me, and I think that's the reason why we've never hit like burnout or anything crazy like that, is because to me it's no different. I have a goal with this. I have somewhere that where this is going to be, and so it's no different than learning a new kata to me, or trying to get ready to test for a new belt. You have your schedule, you go, you do the thing, you train, going, and you just do it till it sticks.
Well, yeah, and I mean, not to get too much into the Marxist ideology here, but I do think it's different, at least for me, that like that this is a thing that we are building together that is ours. I'm much more willing to work it until I can't work anymore towards that than just well, like when I was doing janitor work or whatever, like
Yeah,
or even
ownership
with like
is
teaching. It's yeah, it makes a huge difference, at least to my mindset.
When I
yeah, of course.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say like ownership is really important,
It is.
right? So when we like when you mentioned, that essentially what we need to be a little bit honest about is that Twitch or any sort of social media platform, right? Even on Instagram, people running an Etsy page where it's literally a small business are in fact small business owners. And a lot of people actually run their Twitch through limited companies, right?
Yeah.
Which is perfectly reasonable for tax purposes. It makes it a lot easier, I'm going to be honest, depending on where you live. Here, it doesn't. Our corporation tax is 19%. You don't want to do that. But especially as you're, really not generating a lot of real income, it's just not worth it. But that ultimately, like you said, if you're investing, if your view on it is that you're investing in yourself, right? That it's different, right? This is your project, this is your space, these are your things. That level of ownership definitely can motivate you to, like you said, work that little bit harder, put that little bit extra in, really maybe buckle down when you really didn't want to. Versus where if you're in a space where maybe you feel like you're working for someone else, but again, there's really not that ownership there, which is why so many companies really sort of try to push the whole family
We're a
thing.
family.
Oh, no. All that is emotional manipulation. That is emotional manipulation 101 because they want you to feel like, you owe them, like that you have this role or this responsibility in addition to your technical role and responsibility.
I agree with that, but I also disagree a little bit. Uh, it's 100% emotional and manipulative, but a lot of the times, unfortunately, the people who are propagating it are not intentionally emotionally. Um, which again, I don't think intent necessarily. But as a person who's worked for a lot of those companies, um, the sad thing is that the leadership has been created out of that culture, and they're essentially brainwashed in a lot of these places to the point where they actually believe that. And I think
Yeah.
that's where we actually get a lot of the toxic business practices that we have, is because we've we have these higher CEOs and people pushing this corporate family emotional manipulation, then you have people on the front end who believe it and buy in. I have worked for places that they expect you to do the type of things and be part of the type of things that they would actually do with their real family. And that crossing over of that is where you get these toxic mentality of, well, how could you not come in on the weekend? I'm drowning here. You're leaving me high and dry. I thought you cared.
Yeah.
And I've gotten that from people who just legitimately, I think genuinely, that was all they had, was that
Mm,
business, and they had given themselves and that's sad
yeah.
because I feel like a person's value is so much more than where and what's on your name badge. But we've now
Absolutely.
created a culture where people don't see anything beyond themselves aside from what they can contribute to a business, not a culture, not a society, because I think that sometimes that's an okay stance to take, is looking at what you can give to society and measuring your value on that. But they're looking at it at this company itself and measuring their worth off of their work ethic, which is again another old school generational idea that's starting to resurface through this emotional manipulation tactics that a lot of companies are. And it's scary to think of where it might end up in the next 10, 20 years. It doesn't socially change.
Yeah. I mean, I think that obviously, again, trying to like not tear everything and everyone apart.
Right.
But, I think, a good example to look at is the labor crisis that's happening in the United States at the moment, right? Where there is finally um, enough of a generational disconnect,
Right.
right, between the quote unquote social responsibility that is pushed by older generations being like, you have to work hard because, X, Y, and Z, and to younger people being like, where is the payout? Like, where are my dividends for this? Because they have now watched, 2 and 3 generations go before them who are just agonizing and suffering, right? Kind of in the current climate, going, yeah, but you have to work hard. What do you mean you don't want to work for, $8 an hour? Are you kidding me? This is I put myself through, whoa, whoa, whoa. We can get into all the numbers about what that
Hmm.
$8 is really worth. It's a separate argument. But the point is I think that also there is this expectation that people are saying, actually, I'm worth more than this. My time is worth more than this because I'm going to be more than this job. I want more of my life than this. Like I am more than just the metric that is my productivity. And I think that that's a really important step. I do think though, obviously we've had to just grow out of it. I'm going to be honest. Basically, it had to die off. Um, and what's happening now is that we have this duality, right, where you do have an older generation making decisions that are impacting a younger generation who's really not interested in either choice A or choice B that they were given, and they were like, "No, no, no, I'll take choice C, and it's over there." Um,
Right.
you know, and so I think that no matter what conclusion people come to, inflation. Well, inflation went up regardless. Housing prices. Excuse me, have you tried to buy a house lately? There's a housing shortage.
Actually.
Yeah. You're like, I know a little bit about that. Yeah. And, look, there's so many other sort of contributing factors, right? But if you look at numbers like essentially, like PPP, like if you're, individual purchasing parity powers
Right.
type stuff, right, in the economy, it's ridiculous. All of a sudden you're like, oh, what do you mean my dollar will only buy me this, but it used to buy me all this? Correct. That's what really matters to people. And that, by adjusting that, all you're doing is leveling what it ought to be worth. And kind of regardless of international markets, because look at all these other states who essentially don't care. Because all of their savings is held in the US dollar. So the US dollar should just do something about itself. 70% of all of the world's savings are held in the US dollar. It's why it's the essentially trading currency forever. there's not an alternative. That is a whole other separate thing. But
Mhm.
I'm just saying, like, yeah, so there are a lot of issues. So when you have all of these spaces, right, like on Twitch, where you see some of these kind of newer processes manifesting, people being like, I'm gonna make it. It's a little bit more than like your granddaddy going out to the field being like, I'm gonna plow this till my corn grows. Like, nope. Nope, it's a little bit more than that. And, I think it's a difficult social transition that we're in as far as like a moment. Um, like you said, I think there is a lot of friction, but I think that regardless of whether people are aware or not, right, of the social manipulation, it's still happening, right? And they are reinforcing a process in a positive feedback loop, and whether they're aware about it or not is irrelevant because it occurs with or without their acknowledgement. Um, and so I think that when there are people like us who are able to take a step back and say, hey, you know what? Actually, this is something that I would like to influence or change. Here's maybe how I can take a small step, right, in influencing those around me to help them have the same awareness that I do, or start to have the same awareness that I do. One of the things, so I worked for Ralph Lauren for many years, and it's just, got to get through college thing, but then it evolves, right? And all of a sudden you're in charge of way more than you wanted to ever be in charge of. And you were like, I really just kind of need to pay my tuition, but here we are. Um, so yeah, I worked for Ralph Lauren for many years, and it was just one of those moments where I never fell for it. I never was sold. I get it from a marketing, from a
Hmm.
branding standpoint, merchandising, opening new stores. Like, yeah, I'm all over that. No problem. Toe the line. I understand what we're doing here. But one of the things that I always impressed upon either the people that I worked with or worked for me was that, you know, don't ever let anyone influence you or tell you that you can't discuss your wage. That is a way that wage discrimination occurs. It's also a way that people repress wages. And so you should feel comfortable in talking about it. And I actually had a massive blow up with an HR manager who I found out in the group interviews was telling people that it was illegal for them to discuss their wages with one another. And I was like, it is not. And if you make it a company policy that they can't discuss their wages either and you punish them for that, that is super illegal.
Yep.
And I was like, I will be the first person to report all of you for this. And there was a huge fallout about it. And I was just like, huh, none of you at this level matter. Why are you defending this policy? Like, this
Hmm.
is ridiculous. And it is a level of indoctrination.
Yeah.
It is a level of manipulation that they have also been subjected to. But I think that just, for all of us here in this call who have all just made it very clear that we're aware that these things are happening, it is like those little moments. Like you said, David, you're a teacher. And so you're like, hey, I kind of have an opportunity.
Wrong one.
Oh, what?
Teachers down below. That's
well,
Jake. Kinda.
Oh, what?
Yes, I have done teaching, but David does teaching as part of his job, but is not a teacher.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, I get where
Okay.
that's okay.
That's what I meant.
I can understand the
gotcha.
confusion.
I forgot that I had mentioned that. Yeah. No. Sorry.
So if you're like a course instructor, right, or
Yeah,
whatever the nature
yeah.
of that is.
I do training for a corporation.
Oh, okay.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, so like in a
I
way,
indoctrinate people.
You are the problem. No, but you actually
Fix
have
it, David. Fix
It's
it.
you. Yeah. So like you have a unique opportunity to actually be influencing the culture in a very positive way. And so I know we're like, oh, we're not gonna talk about Twitch stuff. We can talk about whatever else. I know I
You're
completely
fine.
derailed your list of questions.
This
Just
has
100%.
been first of all, you did with the very first thing you said, and it's fine. This has been an amazing conversation. You can't write this, you can't prepare this, you can't plan for this. This is amazing, and don't stop. This is what we want. We started this to get to know people and have legitimate conversations with people because people fucking matter, and that's what everyone forgets. Like all these pity posts and all these people out here like, "Oh, I only have 5 viewers." Fuck you, you have 5 people who are paying attention to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Just for a disclaimer, I would like to say it's like everyone we brought on so far, I've been they've enlightened me in some form or fashion because I'm your typical. I gotta turn wrenches. I go home at freaking 5 o'clock. That's it. I'm done. I'm gonna go to bed. Wake up the next morning. Go to work. That's it. But everyone that's we brought on has like enlightened me in some form or fashion, like my job ethics, my just day-to-day life, the way I perform in just society. I enjoy this. I
Like
might be
that
sitting here smiling, but I'm learning something from people coming on.
Like that's what you want though, right?
Yeah.
Like so many of us have had those opportunities in our lives. Like for example, like your last guest, like Camilla, she was talking about how like she had a really influential teacher, right? And that was a moment, right, where something clicked for her that was impactful in her life in such a meaningful way that it actually redirected what she ended up doing.
Yeah.
Right. And so when you sometimes if you're more open to having those moments and to listening and to being receptive, then you can have more of those little like, oh, you know what, wow, I never thought of it that way type moments, right? And like that's so cool. Now obviously sometimes those moments just like happen to you, like I listened, to her narrative and what was going on there. So like she was at a critical juncture, right, where there was nowhere to go but up, and then somebody very thankfully was like, hey, let me throw you a rope. Like, let's get this going. Let's make a difference in your life. Obviously, not everyone is so blessed with those opportunities, right? And we can all just do our best to, acknowledge those. And again, to be the person to offer the rope, to offer the help, to offer that step up, to put out your hand. And, I do think that, like what you're saying, when we're in this space and we have the opportunity to change it, we should take advantage of that, no matter how small your platform. If you're streaming to those 5 people, or the one person who randomly pops in and you have the opportunity to kind of influence a moment, those are all equally important. And so I think for me, my approach to Twitch was, I don't want to say blasé, but it was just that I didn't really care about growth.
Right.
And at first I didn't have a lot of direction, right? Initially I was like just streaming when other people were like, hey, like Khryseis, come play this game with me. And I was like, I don't really know anything about video games. Because at the time I didn't. I'd had like a PS1 when I was young. And it had only like non-violent video games, and I had like 5. Okay. I had like Digimon, which FYI was very violent.
But also so good. The PS1
So
Digimon
good.
was great.
Yeah, was it
It
Digimon
was
World?
Yes, it was the
Yes,
best.
dude, top 5 game for me. I love that game.
Yes, you end up in this time loop and like they always die and you're trying to save them and they end up in a Nunamon and you're like, why are you just pooping everywhere? Yeah.
Oh, now you're
yeah,
eating the poop. Stop it.
Yeah. Oh, great. Now you're dying because your corruption is higher. Great. Great. I guess I'll be starting over in 10 minutes again for the 50th time. Yeah. No. Relatable. Relatable. We've all been there. We have all been there. And I remember when I borrowed Tony Hawk once, and so my parents had put this like, okay, so my parents were technical, but in the like, they didn't buy the nicest thing. They just wanted the very practical tech, right? So they'd be like, no, we can make this work. So rather than just buying a little portable DVD player, they bought those TVs that had the built-in VCRs that had like the 3 color plugs, and then an adapter for them to plug it in to the cigarette lighter, basically into a thing that was plugged into the cigarette lighter. Then they rigged it between the 2 front seats. Okay. And then so I have like a PlayStation plugged into this TV, into
Mhm.
the thing, into the car, and we're just like driving to Florida. And I was just like, this is fine. So I had borrowed Tony Hawk and I was like, this is the time to play because everybody's in front of me doing other things and I have an opportunity. So I put it on mute because I knew that the music was going to be problematic. There was language in the music. Okay. We just can't have all this West Coast punk, right? Exposing you and corrupting you, right? To all these anarchist ideas. So like slow your roll. So I was just like, pulled it out of my Final Fantasy Tactics case where I had hidden it under the other disc.
She mentioned
Right.
another top 5 game.
Right?
Yep.
I love Tactics. I have played no other Final Fantasy game in my life, just Tactics. just because
It's
my
the
Best
best
dad.
one.
You're like, no, check. That's all you needed. Yeah, my dad was convinced that turn-based strategy games were chess played on a computer, and that is what convinced him. So my dad was a nuclear scientist for the U.S. Air Force. He worked at the Pentagon for a long time, worked on some pretty cool projects, JSTAR, JDAM. He was like original on those projects. And so he had some smart people around him. Yeah, I have high pressure parents. It's fine. It's fine. This is exactly why I am the way I am. Okay, 100%.
Awesome.
Um, yes. So, I was just like, oh, this will be fine. So I had some cool games, right? Like, incidentally. I didn't know any of that at the time. I had zero otherwise awareness of nerd geek video game culture. I was like just not in it. I just like had these things and I just was like, oh, these are cool. But like I didn't play any Pokemon games. I didn't have a Nintendo product ever, so I never played like Mario or Zelda or any of these kind of like iconic coming of age. I remember this from my childhood moments. I didn't have any of that. I was just over here like, why beat Digimon 10 times? That's like my pinnacle of achievement as a video gamer, I guess. No, actually, take that back. I've never beat it. I beat Tactics like a million times. Never beat Digimon. So
Who has?
Me
here
neither.
we are. Here we are. Yeah. So I was just like, huh. So yeah, I was like trying to play Tony Hawk, like, sneaky in the car. And then there was a moment where like the electrics kind of jolted a little bit. And what I thought was muted suddenly was like blaring. Mm. 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 My parents definitely believed in corporal punishment, so
Same.
I was like bare butt on the side of Highway 75, right? That's what like runs north to south, like directly through everything on the East Coast.
Mhm.
And then I had to sit in the car for another 8 hours. So yeah, some lessons were learned. Never finished that game either. Yeah, never. But yeah, so like I was kind of just like new to video game culture. And so, I was just like really throwing myself like I wanted to learn everything there is to know about everything, like I have a PS4 and I didn't have a computer up until I was really really blessed by some of my friends who built me an amazing computer and shipped it from the US. And otherwise I'd like not a PC gamer. I played like Civilization
Still a good game.
and
I mean,
great Sid Meier, great games, great games. But like that was it. That was my like people are like, oh, have you like played PC games before? I was like, I've played Neverwinter Nights and Civ 3.
Yeah.
Welcome to the party.
Civ 3 gives me flashbacks.
It's a great game. It's a great game.
No, it's
Um,
not.
Yes, it
It
is.
is. It is. Unless you're playing with David's dad.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. So this was like a trauma experience for you. That's what I see now.
I had the opposite experience of you, where like your parents were like, no video games, no violent video games. My dad was like, Power Rangers you can't watch because it's magic, but Siphon Filter looks great. Let's get that. Let's play that. Let's play Civilization 3. Oh, also, I cheated. I have spies and nukes, and you guys are still in the Stone Age. My dad once got mad at me because I managed to take one of his cities and nuked my capital, and I was making archers.
Such an escalation. That escalated so quickly. He was like, in case you forgot, like he slapped that down on the table in front of you and reminded you why he was daddy. Like that's what happened.
One, gross, but two, yeah. He
Not
could
wrong.
not. He stopped playing Risk when I learned how to beat him.
Ego is a fragile thing.
And it's so weird because my dad is so humble in like most things outside of that with most people. But for something, when you're family, that humility disappears. Like if you're family and you argue with him, you better have hard fucking facts to prove, like with charts and spreadsheets. He's not going to listen to you playing a
Bring
game.
the PowerPoint.
Just gotta Gotta have a magic like laser going this and this,
Uh-huh.
this,
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
And
This is why you're wrong.
and games, you can bet he's not bad about it now that he's gotten old, but like when we were younger, holy shit. He would cheat at Monopoly. He would cheat at Risk. He would cheat at like it did not matter. If he was losing, he would cheat.
Ow.
Yeah, it was bad.
That's another level. See, I definitely had the opposite experience. My parents were like, "Look, life's not fair, but like we will always play fair." I mean, they were okay. I don't want to give them too much credit because I definitely, while I had a lot of economic privilege, right? Like I didn't really have a good like emotional relationship with my parents. It was like non-existent. My parents were definitely amazing professionals, terrible parents.
Ah,
Um, so they were like those people, right?
okay.
Like
Yeah.
so yeah, like my parents are older. Well, my dad is recently deceased. But
Oh.
like my mom is, gosh, so she had me when she was 35. Like went to the doctor and they were like, "All right, Gail, this is it. It is now or never for those ovaries." And she was like, "Oh shit. Okay, well, I guess I'll do this because, that's it's the era, right? Gotta make babies." And my mom is my mom's American, and so she grew up on the border between Georgia and South Carolina, like around like the Lake Hartwell area. So she rolled up like at a Gone with the Wind, right? Like
Mhm.
she rolled off the porch with sweet tea in her hand, a parasol in the other, and like she could also fix the tractor. Like that's my
Mhm.
mother. And so, she was like, "Right, we're gonna make a baby then. Like you have a year, get on it." And but they were not necessarily the people who like wanted kids because they genuinely wanted kids. They were like, "All right, well, I guess I've done this professional thing for a while, so I guess I'll have a kid." And then they realized they were like, "Actually, kind of just wish I'd only been a professional. This was a mistake." And so, while I didn't ever struggle, we weren't in ever any bad position like financially or anything like that. There was a real disconnect, right, from like myself and my parents. And I have a younger sister as well. She had a little bit better experience than I did because they were like, "All right, so the first one was difficult. The second one will like try again." But there are only two of us. But yeah, no. So like I don't fault them, just kind of like we talked about, like introspection and like being able to kind of accept the points about yourself. I think in the same way we all have a moment, we also have to like accept the things about our parents that are flawed.
Yeah.
And that's actually part of our healing process, right? It's also part of our learning process, our growth process. So like obviously new baby, so you're like, "All right, well, got a parent energy now, I guess this is where
Hmm.
we're at. I guess, oh god, am I my father, am I my father?" As we're all having like an existential crisis, wondering whether or not we have become our parents. um, yeah.
Ah, you have no
Mhm.
idea.
You're like, "No, it's happening. Way to call me out." Yeah.
All the time. So I have a 2-year-old son,
Mhm,
and I have another one on the way, due
mhm,
end of October. So
mhm, mhm,
you hit the nail on the head there with that because you constantly have this battle between you. Especially, I think it's probably even more prominent the better relationship you have with your parents because
mhm,
I was the other way around. We had nothing economically. We were shit. But my parents were always there, and like they don't understand any of the things that I did other than the martial arts because my dad was also a martial artist. But they were always supportive of any of the things that we tried to do. Um, but there are always the bad and the good, and you constantly find yourself being like, I want to give my kids the positives of my upbringing without the
mhm.
negatives, and then you try to balance that, and then you do something and you're like, shit, I'm my dad.
Yeah. It claps different. All of a sudden you're like, "Oh, oh, oh." Yeah. I mean, it can be sometimes in the best way, like you might find yourself being like, "Oh, I remember when, my dad did this with me." And now you're also kind of passing that on, right? And you're like, "Ah, okay, this is kind of nice." But then all of a sudden when you find yourself maybe being like, "Oh, did I just have a maybe," obviously I'm not saying you do this, but this is just
No,
an
no, you're good.
example.
You're good.
Like all of a sudden like you snap about something and you're like, "Oh, you know what? That was something where it's like you see yourself both in your child and then then you see your father in yourself, right? And all of a sudden you're just like, It's happened. Oh no. Yeah. And I think that's a moment of clarity. It kind of happens in an instant. Like you just get smacked across the face with it. It's not something that's like slow burning. It just arrives like a rush of sound where all of a sudden, whatever occurred, kid knocks over glass and it's, let's say, wine on the carpet or some shit like that or whatever. And you're mad about it because you're thinking about, well, gosh, shouldn't have had it, should have had it out of his reach. I was in charge, right? You're finding personal fault with something that's happened, but obviously you're still just like crap because you have to deal with the consequences of it, as layered as those are, you know. And then, also you're understanding that, like, well, a kid didn't do it on purpose, or I don't know, maybe somebody did do it. You told them, no, don't, and they were like, who knows? But you just
Kids are
have
like cats, can confirm.
100%. They're like, oh, this is on the edge of the table. Perfect. I am now
This is
also on
on
the
the
edge of the
table.
table. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's on the table.
We're just
Maybe
now
it's the other
all on
round.
the table, right? Like they don't even care. And so, but I think that moment happens. And, I'm not a parent yet, but it's one of those things where it's like I have a lot of friends who I've spoken to, kind of at length about what is essentially an existential crisis that they,
Mm.
you know, go through, where they realize that the parental identity is something that's generational within their unit, right?
Yeah.
So because they're reflecting, parts of their parents' values. And I know you were talking a little bit about, kind of some of these traits and how this works in other aspects of our lives. But that ultimately, that's part of how our characterization develops, right? These are the things that we were exposed to. So those are also the things that we embody, and those can be good or bad. And obviously, it's up to us to try and shape that reality to be in a more positive light, and like you said, like embody the good things, and try to leave behind the bad. But then when you have that moment where maybe a little bit of it slips through, the control just loosens just a little bit, and all of a sudden you're like, meh, I am my father. And like that hurts, right? Like that hurts because like you didn't maybe want to be that part of it, right? Because in a way it revisits maybe a trauma that you experienced.
Yeah.
It revisits your feelings, right? It just drags all that up. And like you said, look, this is Midwestern cowboy culture. We don't talk about feelings. You put that shit on a shelf, you tape it up with duct tape, it goes in the attic. Maybe the raccoons get to it, but like who knows? I'm not up there to look at it. I dragged that Christmas box out of there without even turning on the light, right? And it's like that
Yeah.
sort of thing, and all of a sudden, that can, I think, especially, I do think especially for men, really can
Yeah.
kind of bring up a lot of stuff that you aren't prepared for. And when it just arrives, in that rush that you're just in a moment that seems to last forever, but like realistically, you're just like watching the wine seep into the cup and you're like, yeah.
I think too, there's also it's like you said, there's also the good. I
Oh
think
yeah.
that having, and it doesn't have to be children. I think that's just what did it for me. There
Mm,
are moments in our life and experiences that we have that awaken something in us that changes our worldview. Not even necessarily completely on its head, but like 2 years ago, I was content and quite happy working at my day job, where I still provide value. I still like my job, but somewhere around my son's first birthday, I started having the thought process of like, oh, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. Like I would love to make this work and pay the bills and provide for my family, because not only is this something that I love and enjoy, which started to matter more, but it also is something that I can do and I can involve my family. I can be there for my family. And I think that like a huge inspiration on that for me was I watched Dr. Lupo. His son walks into his stream room and is like, "Hey, Dad, I need your help with this." Like because of my experiences where my dad wasn't around when I was like
mm,
have that moment of who do you want to be? What kind of father do you want to be? Like what what person do you want to be? And it could be anything. Could be I've known some friends who they got fired from the job that they thought they were going to have the rest of their life, and now they have to examine and be like, who do I want to be? What am I? What am I? Who am I? And that
yeah.
moment of introspection and true introspection, not just that surface level feel good BS that spread around Twitter and Twitch and TikTok and
Hmm. I did a whole thing on toxic positivity like before it became a buzzword last year, and
mhm.
people were mad at me about it. And they were like, "We're in the middle of a pandemic. People just want to feel good. People just want to escape." And I'm just like, yeah, but I
So do
kind of just
heroin
don't want.
addicts.
Yeah, I kind of don't. I mean, pardon my French. Is this marked mature? It's fine.
Oh no, you're good. Swear.
Okay. I was like, I kind of just don't want everybody sat around circle jerking and like blowing smoke up each other's asses because like that's not real life.
Right.
And that's so superficial. And I think that one of the things that I get from people who don't really know me is they're like, oh, like Khryseis, like you're so like nice and wholesome and good. And I'm like, shut the fuck up. Okay. Um, all those things can be true, right?
Right.
I try to be very compassionate. I try to be an active listener. I try to genuinely engage with people. I kind of allocate the resources that I think people are due at any given moment or that they need and that I have available, right? It's always a hierarchy of needs. That's true for everyone.
Yeah.
But that, I think for me, I really railed against people who emerged on the streaming platform as positivity streamers. Um, there's nothing wrong with being, a chill place, a good place, a positive place. But some positive vibe only people, I have gone toe to toe because it's super toxic. And I've always been really outspoken about it. I think that uh, a big part of the reason that mud doesn't really seem to stick to me is because, like, when you're right, you're right,
Mhm.
and whether people want to admit that to themselves or publicly is a different issue, like,
Right.
but that ultimately, like, I find that people can't come for me because ultimately it's like, "But was I wrong?" And that's hard, right? That's hard for people, but, like, I'm unapologetic about that. I'm
That's
completely
good though.
unapologetic about it. Yeah, and so I did, like, a toxicity podcast, basically, and again, kind of before everybody was, no offense, guys, sat
No,
around
you're
doing
good. You're good.
podcasts. Um, and I just really want to do like a 3-part mini series. Like I'm not a podcaster. I had been on regular podcasts with as a guest, like through some friends who publish on Anchor and stuff like that. Um, and I was kind of like, oh, this is like a really interesting subject, and I had someone I wanted to speak to about these different issues. So we talked about, we had an episode on toxic masculinity. Then we had my favorite episode, which was on toxic positivity, and I just was completely, I mean, unfiltered, I guess, is a fair way to put it. Because I think that it was one of those moments where a lot of people had joined the platform. I felt that it was a positive change for the platform overall to
Yeah.
have people trying to improve the space. So I didn't want to take away from that, but I also didn't want it to kind of end up getting derailed
Right.
by everybody sit around, being, I don't know if anybody has seen the show Spartacus, but there were
Mhm.
fluffers. And I didn't need a room full of fluffers.
Right.
Like, I can carry my big old stick by myself with 2 fucking hands. Like, I don't need someone to fluff that for me. Um,
Oh.
and, like, that's just like, that was my hot take. And
Right.
essentially, I was kind of like, look, there's positive vibes only marginalize the very real experience that people are having right now. We are in the middle of a global pandemic. A lot of people do know people who have died, become seriously ill, have long-term effects um, from, COVID-19.
Yep.
And there have been a lot of people who have lost their jobs so that they are financially insecure, right? They've lost family members, they're emotionally insecure and unstable, right? Their physical security is at risk because obviously they could get sick. It's a pandemic. And when you combine all of these factors, like this is not a great time to be having any sort of pivotal human experience that's going to be just like, oh, positive vibes only, guys. Let's all try to escape and be happy. Fuck off. Like, there's nothing wrong with trying to keep your energy up, right? And
Sure.
I get where Jordan's coming from, where he's just like, hey, you know what? I'm gonna put a little tag on this that lets people know that this is real talk time and this is where we're at. That's super fair. And that it's also super fair that people shouldn't come in and trauma dump because that's not fair to the people around you in a real space. Like, don't
Right.
do that.
Right.
But these are all just like normal social things.
Yeah.
This to me is not like I'm making some sort of great exception because I'm on Twitch. Like this isn't special. This is
Yeah.
not special. And so yeah, so like setting, like knowing those boundaries and setting those boundaries and just being like, this is where we're at. I think that what I always sought to provide was just a real space. Also because I was kind of a real person before I encountered Twitch. I didn't need when you were talking about, finding our identities and stuff and what happens, like, if you lose your job or, your family situation, your personal life has a dramatic shift. It severely impacts your identity, right?
Yeah.
Because so much of your life it was carried out through those roles, relationships, and dynamics that now might not exist. Um, and so for me, uh, I didn't really have any sort of, I guess, attachments within Twitch. So coming to Twitch, I could only bring outside influences in. Um, and while I was interested in making those sorts of relationships, finding those sorts of bonds, at the same time, I kind of had my own ethos before I arrived. And I didn't need Twitch to influence or create a new facet of my identity when really all Twitch allowed me to do was showcase what I thought and who I was. And, kind of in a way push that agenda, right? To be the person who said, look, no, we want norms to change. We want positive change on the platform. We want representation. We want diversification. Then, like, this is how it has to happen. Um, and that I didn't need Twitch to be a part of who I was. And so it just allowed me to manifest who I was in a new space. And I think for a lot of people that is the opposite, right? They come to Twitch hoping to be someone, but ultimately why they struggle or they don't succeed or they're constantly going through rebrandings is
Hmm.
because they're inconsistent. And it's not that their schedule is inconsistent; they personally are inconsistent.
I was just about to say, yeah, that the problem is that we so many people come in, I think exactly like what you're saying, trying to find themselves or unsure of who they are. And so rather than following trends with content, become trends in content, which I think is slightly uh, to use the example that you did of okay, I
Toxic
can talk.
positivity.
Yeah, toxic positivity. When that was the big trend on Twitch, the amount of Warzone streamers that I found, and not to shit on Warzone streamers, I've met a lot of cool
Oh, it's
ones.
I shit on Warzone streamers. They can be cool people, but ultimately, like, what are you doing? But
I
yes,
I
continue.
was one until the lawsuit.
I
So,
know.
but but the amount of them that I found where like the stream title was like vibe try or ooh no, I don't want to use that one. That's Kyle Driver and not like this.
Yeah.
But like positive vibes only
Yeah.
or and you click in and like within the first 30 seconds you hear motherfucker just at the top of their lungs and like they're slamming their controller and stuff and I went, "Did you read your own title, bro?" Like
Yeah. Are you aware? Do you know what's happening here? No?
and then you have the other end of the spectrum where they don't express who they really are at all, unlike
Yeah.
that guy who just never filtered himself, and they hide behind the trends. They try to be their favorite streamer, which is just it comes off as disingenuous and like they're lying to you. And I don't know about you guys, but I cannot sit in those streams. They make me sick to my stomach. It feels gross.
Yeah. 'Cause it is gross.
Yeah.
That's the word you're looking for. It is gross. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
I had like a moment where, oh, okay, so I kind of still know this person, so I'm gonna like tread carefully because I don't think that they're a bad person,
Okay.
but I do think that they're a bit disingenuous. Now, do I think that they're doing this maliciously? No. But like we said in the past, it doesn't change the fact that it is manipulation. It
Right.
doesn't change the fact that it is dishonest. And that I, have done a lot to kind of signal at this person and have even gone as far as like after I was on like a YouTube podcast with them was like, hey, this is what I think. And that was a hard conversation because I was like, you've known me now for almost a year, you know, as you guys, for example, are an excellent example. We were like, hey, I had a spark of a conversation with you that kind of piqued my interest. I then therefore followed up, did a little bit of research, kind of like looked through your socials and like did all this stuff. And like this is I arrived at the point that I wanted to have a real conversation with you. Um, this person has been aware of my presence, right? Because I was in their stream a lot. We have a lot of mutuals who spend a lot of time in each other's spaces. Um, Asked me to do their YouTube podcast with them.
Oh.
It got a little spicy, in the sense that like not only did I hear, right, we're having a conversation.
Hmm.
There, I basically had a conversation at him. I drove, managed, and led the entire space.
You didn't talk with him, you talked to him.
Yeah, it was awful. And his questions were really like just this set thing. And when he asked me, like, hey, because this is only like I think I was his like fifth or sixth episode. Um, he was like, "What do you think could be some things I could improve?" And I said, "Well, one of the things that I think you could improve is that like you didn't really have any sort of personal connection with me. So you asked me questions that didn't apply to me that I had to turn into a conversation point. Um, and ultimately you left it up to me to carry us through huge parts of this conversation and basically so on and so forth, right?
Right.
Now, that's a little bit disappointing to me because I was like, well, I've known this person. My expectations for this conversation were way up here.
Right.
The delivery on that conversation was way down here. And my whole thing, which is this is going to sound a little bit terrible, is that I need people to be interesting, right?
No,
I
that's
need
fair.
I need people to be interesting. I kind of talk about it, but kind of don't talk about it. I was very lucky to have my autism diagnosis when I was really young because I went to private school. Um, and like I did a ton of work. I mean, a ton of work. With a speech therapist. I mean, I didn't talk for like till I was like 6 or 7, and you wouldn't believe it now, right? Um, but yeah, did a lot of work to be really, really functional, excellent masking, a total chameleon. Like I've got this skill sets. Develop them, practice them, do your best, right? I'm in an ideal environment. It's quiet, completely controlled. Everything is my way. This is fabulous, right? Of course, this is going to be where I seem optimal, right? Because I don't
Right.
have any sort of external pressures. Um, and it was I was just like, he just didn't seem to know the slightest thing about me. And then carrying this conversation and then trying to have it just like it was like pulling teeth and it was really disappointing. And like I just need people to be better than that.
Right.
Because in some ways, not that I'm in anybody, and it's not about Twitch, it's not about clout, it's not about
Right.
numbers, it's literally just like respect my time
Yeah.
and respect the effort that I'm gonna put in. Because this guy's on a is different time zone than you. It was like 4, 6 in the morning, 8 in the morning for me by the time we finished. And I was just like, mm. So I think it's just one of those moments where there are a lot of spaces on Twitch that take advantage, right? Like you guys are interested in the conversation. You're interested in meeting people. You met me in a totally different space. We'd had a lot of conversations within conversations in somebody else's chat, right? I was immediately like, I'm interested. I want to have this conversation. There are so many spaces on Twitch, like you said, that took advantage of trends, right? Rather than trying to curate one themselves, rather than trying to reinforce one themselves. And yeah, this podcast was one of them where he was kind of just the idea is that people share your content because they're in it, right? And we all understand that that's how that works. And so when these big, quote unquote bigger streamers, I know some of them,
Mm.
have these like streamer super podcast shout out streams where it's like 6 of them on there and they're all quote unquote playing games together, like, oh, let's write on our little whiteboards and like do shit like that. I find that
Yeah.
it's gross, right? It's gross. Because we all know how it works, but for whatever reason, people think that that's the game.
Yeah.
Um, I want to change the game. And I am kind of unabashedly critical of people who just keep reinforcing it. And yeah, so like I mean like these are people that I know and I'm just like, what are you doing? Don't call me. Like, don't. I'll come play with you, but like, don't. We're not doing this. And so yeah, I think that just Twitch generally is a space that's evolving. I think as a platform, it's very reactive. It's slow to react. That does slow progress, right? Because there was obviously a huge influx of people using the platform. Ultimately, I agree with Jordan. It's a social media platform, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it's so far beyond just the e-boy pro gamer. I play FIFA boys now, right? Like it's so far beyond that. You're like, I don't know, I've been in those spaces. Um, Twitch does a lot, right? It has a lot to offer. I think that where it bulks is that it's not prepared to embrace new spaces and reinforce those new spaces. Um, so yeah, oh God, people, mm-mm. Sometimes people just like rub me the wrong way. And
You're not
again,
alone.
it's not malicious, but like we're not going to be friends. So
Yeah.
no, so I just, like I said, I just want to just so you guys know, I just really appreciate like this conversation, being invited here, because I see some spicy things.
But that's who you are, and that's fine. And I have loved this. I have an entire like notepad of notes. We've gotten to one of them, and that's fine. I don't
Oh,
care because the conversation has been amazing and real and raw and human. And I think that's the part that people it's so easy to remove the humanity from things. Um
mm,
I was a salesman, and a damn good one, for many years before I went into security. I went into security, then I went into rehabilitative therapy, uh, where I learned how to manipulate people for positive gain. I could be a piece of shit. I could have our followers very, very high right now, but it doesn't mean anything because the content wouldn't mean anything. It would be
yeah.
me sitting here on camera, hyping people up and convincing them that I was going to deliver something to them that I was never intending to deliver. And I would be a support for support streamer, and they would pay my bills because they would give me their money expecting something from me, and I would be a garbage piece of human.
Yep.
And
Yeah, 100%.
but and the fact that that still exists on Twitch is mind-boggling. How do people not know that this is bullshit?
I love that all those like brochatos are the same guys who would be like, pyramid schemes are just like ladies selling makeup. And I'm like, or it's you jerking off your friends,
Yeah.
just one right down the line, and the guy who gets at the end is just a fucking Frosty the Snowman. Like, I don't know what to tell you. This is not good. So it's like, so you recognize it in other spaces, but when you do it yourself, suddenly it's fine. Like, I have
I-
questions.
I recently came across one of those guys and came afoul of him. Received my first ever Twitch ban. I'm a real streamer
Yeah.
now. But
Is this the guy that we all reported?
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, I'm one of those, so I am a chronic lurker, right? Because ultimately, this is a space, right, where it's kind of like, not that like I'm in control, but ultimately I kind of get to guide, like my
Yeah.
own responses, and I'm not, in any way being cornered into doing or saying whatever I don't want to do, right? So this is
Yeah.
fine. But like if I'm in like somebody else's Twitch chat or something like that, like that's really like their curated space. So until you kind of like learn those boundaries and things, and kind of the context of how their space exists, I don't ever really like to interact. And so it's like type go get a high speed as I seem, like, oh, this little bean is just gonna sit and I will wait for like months before I drop a hello. And then people are like, oh,
Same.
wait, you have like tons of channel points. Like, oh, have you been a lurker? Like, yes, I finally just worked up the cojones to say something. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Um,
Fair.
or like, oh, I like you enough, or I like this conversation enough to finally engage. Like, I'm
Yeah.
that's the other thing, is that I might just like, watching this person play this game, or I might like other
Mhm.
people in the space, but then it's
Right.
just kind of like I don't really care to spend the energy to join in on the conversation, which is also my prerogative. Um, yeah, so see, like Jake's over here, like I know what that's like. This is me. Hi, welcome to my party.
100%, yes.
Yeah. And that's totally fine. But yeah, so like I just watched that whole thing unfold
Hmm.
um without engaging, and I was just like, I'm just gonna take some screen recordings and just
Hmm.
like save these for a rainy day. Yeah, because again, I'm big on accountability. Um,
Same.
so when I posted, I posted when the Blizzard Activision news came out, right? When the case dropped, I basically dropped a link to like, hey, guess what? Freedom of Information Act, you can just go read the complaint.
Yep.
Right? That was the link that I dropped that first night before everybody was like, oh, and I was just like, shut the fuck up. Like, did you go read the complaint? Because I saw a lot of people being like, oh, well, this screenshot isn't the whole picture. I'm like, you can just go read the complaint. Like, it's
Hmm.
available. I posted a link. Go check it out. You can just go see that. It's available. Um, there are tons of testimonials out there. There are tons of spaces that were already filled with a lot of these narratives. And, for people who have kind of experienced the way that these power dynamics work, right, in spaces, whether because you are, a member of any sort of minority group, if you're female, and obviously, like, it's a male dominated power dynamic. So, hello. Like these are things that we experience, and it's kind of just ridiculous for people, to be like, well, oh, yum, 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 yum. No, somebody died. Like, there was an internal investigation that has already occurred that has now been deemed wildly insufficient. Like, hold on, there's a lot happening in this complaint. This is not just like somebody grabbed somebody's butt at the water cooler. This is a whole nother level. Um, and so yeah, like, I kind of posted that, and like nobody
Hmm.
cared.
No.
And I was just like, oh, interesting. So that's when I kind of subtweeted my in a way, I guess, but like not technically a subtweet because it's just like a new tweet where I was just like, fucking be accountable, basically.
Hmm.
Right? Where it's just like I can just, I can post nonsense where it's just like, oh, here's a picture of my dog, or like here's me in a bikini, or like me doing something else, or like food. And, like 40 of you like it. But when I ask you to engage in a meaningful discussion over relevant content, suddenly nobody has anything to fucking say.
Scary.
Um,
It's heavy. It's hard. I mean,
that for
look
me
at.
is a problem.
I
Yeah.
I agree, but I mean, this is where I get caught kind of between a couple of pillars, because I agree with you wholeheartedly. Those conversations need to be had. And I think that the more influential you are, the more those conversations need to be had. But we're so caught in between the pillars of entertainment within Twitch and accountability that everyone wants to appear like they're pro accountability, while still not losing the entertainment, and they're not willing to have a space or a time where they meet, um,
Mhm.
or where one drops off for a time and we're just over here. Um, and I get it, because business is how you pay your bills, and audience may not be have that conversation, but I feel like have a moral and social obligation have that conversation. It doesn't have to be, we don't have to sit here and have a 2 hour just chatting session about it, but there needs to be some acknowledgement and some accountability, and and bring it forward and bring it to the light of day so that people aren't so scared to talk about it. Now I understand that this specific topic has a lot of triggering things that some people are not ready to talk about, and that's completely fine. But when you're a larger creator and you're unwilling to have these conversations, I think that you are doing not only your community but Twitch as a platform a disservice, because you're showing that it's okay to ignore types of behaviors.
Absolutely. Snaps.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it can
Classic.
literally be as simple as, right? Obviously, we've seen the trend. A lot of people have been going to play Final Fantasy 14,
Yeah.
right? The super popular MMO. I have tons of friends that have been playing it for years and years and years, right? Um, the conversation is literally, somebody comes in your stream and they're like, "Oh, okay, so you're playing Final Fantasy 14 today," and you're like, "Yeah, actually, due to the controversy that has emerged surrounding, Blizzard Activision being sued by the state of California's labor department, I will no longer be playing game X that I used to play, and instead, I found this really great game that I can still play with all of my friends, Final Fantasy 14. That's what we're going to be doing now." That's the whole conversation,
Right.
right? And so if you're someone who doesn't necessarily want to compromise the face of your content, i.e., I do escapism bullshit. And this is the other thing I said to that, to the streamer who I did the podcast with for YouTube. I was just like, no, because he was like, "What do you say to people who just want to come to Twitch to escape?" I'm like, well, there are other spaces for them. It doesn't have to be my space. Twitch
Yeah.
is a big place.
Ah.
Um, I am not gonna compromise or change what I'm doing, right?
Mhm.
Um, Simply because my existence, right, is challenging your comfort. I'm not making you uncomfortable. I'm just challenging your comfort. Those are two very different things. And,
Right.
if people want to go and just zone out and have it on in the background, fine. FYI, YouTube does that a lot
Mm.
better. But that's a different discussion. Like if you're literally not interacting and that's what that's the bridge that Twitch builds for you is allows for that interaction, then guess what? You don't need that. So, go watch YouTube and kind of I mean, I'm not saying this is like everybody should leave Twitch and go watch YouTube or anything. I'm just like, what's the point? Right now, I also understand that sometimes people just like to observe conversation. Nothing wrong with that either. Fine. Right. But these are different spaces. And that here's the thing if you aren't willing, so if you like my conversation when I'm talking about things that don't make you uncomfortable, then that's all well and good for you and you want to stay and lurk and just leave a tab open or whatever, fine. That's your prerogative. If suddenly I'm talking about something that challenges you or makes you uncomfortable, you can leave my space. You can stay. You can be open to what we're talking about. You might learn something new. You might not. You might agree. You might not. But guess what? That conversation is happening with or without you. And I literally don't care if you're gone. And it's not one of those things where I'm like, get out because I'm happy to take on essentially challenging and difficult topics. I don't mind, right? I've had a lot of those conversations since, I've started streaming where even though we're playing games and, we're doing their topical discussions, for me, obviously, I connect a lot of real stuff back
Right.
to things that I've studied and what I've done and, what I have professional or academic experience in. And that I feel that I work really hard to try to be articulate and clear when I'm communicating complex ideas. And asking people kind of hard questions. A really good example of that is that we played Soma, right? Which, kind of is like the terror of existential dread,
Mm.
right? The fear of non-existence. So we can have those types of conversations. But then we also played Hellblade, Senua's Sacrifice, which, touches intensely on mental health and tells you at the start that the developers worked really hard to include mental health professionals, historians, and people with lived experience to try to make this as authentic as possible. And the sound engineering on that game is like it's one of a kind, right? The way that the game is constructed. So if you've not had a chance to play that game in a good
Um,
headset, you should do it. It's kind of a Souls like, but with really good story. It's not very long. I did it in 3 streams, so
hmm,
it's totally digestible in I would say 12 hours of play.
dang.
So super doable, super doable. So those types of topics, are involved. But I started out playing an indie game, Spiritfarer, right, which talks about death, right, and the journey that we go through, with the grieving process and what closure means and just a variety of different things. So, you can talk about all these things. You can still foster this quote unquote entertaining environment. But I think that what I call into question is what is it that people really need?
Right.
Do you need another desk flipping douchebag playing Warzone? No. There are tons of those.
Yeah.
What makes what makes whatever that one person is doing, you know, is it so marginally different that like, no, this is the guy. But at the same time, do I need another just chatter?
Hmm.
No. You know, but I'm not someone to sit here and like put limits on people's, creativity and their outlets. But what I do call into question is that just like, look, if my space isn't for you and your pushback on me is that I'm not entertaining, what do you find
Hmm.
entertaining? And my pushback to that response is that I don't think that that should be what entertainment is. I think that we should demand more from our media. We should demand these conversations from these spaces to be challenging, because I think that our entertainment reflects the questions and where we are in society. If you look at what television shows are starting to publish and to represent, whether it be in spaces like This Is Us or Atlanta or The L Word or any of these other things that you're like, oh, that comes on the CW, that's got to be trash. But you're like, but do you see these people having these conversations in mainstream entertainment on primary channels? Not in the same way. Why? Because there would be pushback from people who are there for quote unquote entertainment.
I I want to take a step back real quick,
Mhm.
just to clarify, because I made my stance, I think, very clear in our tweet about this. Obviously, I don't condemn the people who continue. While I believe the boycotting is appropriate, I don't condemn the people who still continue to make content on Blizzard and Activision stuff. I understand that some people built their brands there, and are unable or unwilling to make that change. Um, but at least have the conversation.
Yeah.
There's several creators that I follow who, um, they addressed it. They had their conversation. They talked about, like, look, this right. We don't support it, but this is what we do, and I can understand that and I can appreciate. So I want to get that out there for anyone listening and coming in later or in the middle of the conversation. We're not saying at least I'm not saying that those people are awful or to blame or wrong necessarily, but I think it's 100% correct, especially for the content creators who either one refuse to acknowledge it or two who it boycott it but then don't have that conversation. Then why are you doing it? If things have to have a point, and to bring it back to what you were just talking about with entertainment, and I think that something can be entertaining and make a point. And I think that it's very interesting, given that we're talking to Khryseis. I think that that is an idea that extends far back throughout history. I know the origin of your name. I know exactly what it's a reference to, and the Iliad and everything Homer wrote was entertainment with a purpose, with a point. It was saying something.
Thank
Uh,
you. Like, I go over this all the time, but I just often I'm like, it's ancient Greek for golden, and then people are like, oh, that's nice. You have gold accents. I get it, and I'm like, yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, we'll just leave it there.
I honestly, I don't explain it anymore. Like, I used to
right.
explain it all the time, and then I kind of got over it. And then, like, yeah, I just was like, I'm done. Like, it has so many connections to me. Like, I read Ayn Rand when I was really young, and the very first work of hers that I read was Anthem, right? And the protagonist calls his lover the Golden One. Um, and so I was just like, for me, it like just has kind of a lot of like canonical connections to
Right.
my life and coming of age. So I was just like, oh, it's like my handle has always been Crises. It just happens to be that I guess some dead random accounts, other places have used something just close enough that I have to put numbers at the end. So like
That's
that's where
always the
we're at on that.
worst.
Yeah, but no, 100%. I really genuinely appreciate that like you're like, "Hey, I get this. I see where you're coming from. I see this is why this is kind of your bugbear." Is that I think that things should have purpose,
Yep.
right? I believe that. I think that no matter the chaotic energy, there is purpose. somewhere, because there had to have been at some point. Like
Right.
that's the whole. It's necessary. Um, and so whether it's a butterfly effect, the point is
Hmm.
that at a point of origin there was purpose. Um, and look, I'm not religious. This isn't turning into some sort of religious
No,
thing.
you're fine.
But at some point someone had intention, right? And so for me, and in my approach to Twitch, like I said, at first I kind of wandered because I was like, I don't really know what I'm doing here, just having fun, I guess, because it's the pandemic, and I was literally locked in the world's smallest dormitory at the university where like I was like living and working, and I was just like, this is a nightmare, because we got moved into the freshman dorms and I
Ooh.
had been living in like
High society.
postgraduate like researcher
High
accommodations.
society.
I wouldn't
And
say
then
high society, but
Higher
oh
society.
no, but we won't even pay each other for our own research, so like oh.
oh,
um oh yeah, no, because we're all like, oh my god, it's locked behind a paywall. Oh no, send it, send it, send it. um so I yeah, all of a sudden I was just like, yeah, I mean, of course, I was just like everybody else who had a massive social disruption and had no outlet and was alone and was really struggling because, like same normal things, loss of job, loss of purpose, loss of identity, loss of drive, all of these things that for me were like existential
mm,
threats, where I was like, I don't know what I'm doing with my whole life.
yeah.
What comes next? And so what I decided to do was kind of get back to the root of what it is that I believed and thought about the world, and where could I manifest that next. And like, just Twitch became an outlet unintentionally. I didn't approach the platform being like, this is what I'm going to do, I'm going to change the world through Twitch. Like, are you kidding me? Not that far up my own ass, but like, I definitely then saw that there was an opportunity where there were a lot of people with very good intentions. And I say
Yeah.
this in the most sincere way that I possibly can. There are so many people with very good intentions who I think are a little bit lost in the execution of what they want to happen, or what they mean to happen. And so,
Mm,
I think that that comes from a variety of different, it's a case by case basis, for why, whatever reason, they are a little bit lost, a little bit wandering. I do often find that it kind of just comes from not knowing who you are completely, and none of us really know that because it's a ongoing process. But just really being rooted in who you are and what you believe can really help ease that journey. It's just a little ethical lubricant, right? Like, you'll be fine. You'll be fine, but it allows you to enter and leave spaces a little bit more confidently without the fear of losing yourself to environmental influences.
that's my God. We don't have enough. That, that losing yourself to environmental influences. We could have a whole nother 2 hour long conversation about that.
Bring me
Uh,
back.
100%. My God,
Part 2.
I am not kidding, Khryseis. I have so many
Next,
notes of things that I
there's like
wanted
a
to
mini
talk.
series coming out. Like, next thing you know, we'll have a Netflix special. This is
Mm,
fine.
Yeah.
We're not
Uh,
losing ourselves to entertainment. We
Exactly.
want quality entertainment. Are you not entertained? Yes, no, seriously.
But there's so much, and okay. How do I want to wrap this up? There's so many thoughts going through my head right now, and I love it. I love thought-provoking conversations. I can do this all night. But what I'll say to wrap it up is, I think that I enjoy our process and our slow evolution on this channel because we were fortunate. None of us really, I mean, Jake, you were, but we weren't as affected by COVID as a lot of people.
Yeah.
We were marked as essential workers. Now, Jake lost his job, unfortunately, due to it. But he lives in my house. Like, he didn't have as much pressure as a lot of people did.
Yeah, that was in a very fortunate situation for the time.
So the real loss, for me anyways, and I don't know how these two feel, they can echo that, was the loss of, I'm a very social person, and we lost that. We used to have my basement, which is also part of the motivation for our Twitch channel, but I won't get into that. We used to have every Saturday, almost all day, my basement was filled with people. I had, like, whether it was D&D or we were playing card games or things like that, like, my weekends were filled with social interaction with people that I enjoyed and felt very close to. And the pandemic hit, and I haven't heard word one from any of them. One person still here. One person talks to us in real life. One person still comes to my home. And not to, I don't want to disparage any of the other people. Like, I understand life moves on. They had to adapt to a COVID world. But I lost something that I needed in my life. And creating this space and having this space gave me that thing that I was missing. And because of my discipline and the reasoning behind starting this, and then what it's evolved into due to other things, I think has helped us not, like, we never really fell for any of the, like, we've done dumb trend TikToks, but we never became a trend. We performed a trend on a dumb app to just have fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I
yeah.
Talked you into trends.
Don't worry about it, Kyle. I wasn't gonna
Yeah.
mention you're forced to do the WAP, but we didn't have that sort of identity crisis that I think a lot of creators were having in this time. And so yeah, we didn't blow up. We didn't have to self-examine ourselves and reinvent ourselves and put that all out on the internet for people, which tends to do very well in content for whatever reason. But we were able to shape this, slowly grow, not only with our budget, but with what we want to create, what we create. If we didn't feel like making a video, it wasn't this, like, I need to post my third TikTok because I need to start growing, because I need to pay my rent. If I didn't feel like making a video, we just didn't make a fucking video. Like,
Yeah.
which I think is a great way to approach content creation at the start. I think you need to build a foundation before you start adding all these extra things. When we first started, it was 1 day a week. And then we've grown out and built our discipline there because this. But yeah, I think too many people lose themselves in the I'll say cesspool that is social media.
Yeah.
But anyways, I I don't have time, but I am gonna say I'm gonna bring it up real fast. I saw that
Okay.
you did Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Oh yeah.
I really want to talk to you about that sometime. So I've done Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Karaho Kempo, Ryukyo Kempo, Wing Chun. I've done martial arts since I was 6 years old. So that we're gonna have to talk about that sometime because
We do
I
like a
love that.
whole podcast on that, honestly. Like, yeah, no, I get that. Yeah, so I was a good boxer. I did amateur MMA. I first discovered BJJ when I lived in South Korea, and I like know the whole. I know the like I trained at the guy's gym who actually brought BJJ. He's a Gracie black belt. He actually was the very first person to open a BJJ school in South Korea. It was like right down the road from my university, and I went there. We were all very good friends, and so like yeah, no, like I'm like as far people always talk about like lineage, right, in martial arts, and like yeah, like I'm like third generation, like from that close of a Gracie school, like not just like some podunk guy who's like, I, did some stuff at this MMA gym and I got my purple belt, and I'm just like, yeah, shut the fuck up, like no, yeah, no. So I was like an international competitor and stuff. So I went to compete in BJJ all over the world. Really quite a good boxer. Did some Golden Gloves. Yeah, so
Nice.
yeah, mine's really quite well, I guess, tested as far as the application of stuff. So
I
yeah,
also
no,
know that she's basically fucking Robin Hood. So
you've seen it.
have.
You've seen it. There were actual videos because people were like, "You just stuck those arrows in there," and I was like, "Get the fuck out of my Twitter page." Yeah. So like that was a whole nother thing that I had to deal with. Ugh, it's fine.
Just
People.
Mm.
Bro, you should just okay. So like, I know it seems so. If you scroll through my Twitter, it's like a weird mix of like super nice, like, oh hey, here's a dog, and like I'm traveling, or like, hey, I'm saying something that I think is meaningful, and then it's me having to deal with shitlords, which is also not great. But like, yeah, so like I just, I'll put people on blast. I'll post that tweet. Like, oh, you want me to screenshot that? Don't fucking leave that in my message box if you don't want me to post that, because I will.
Yeah.
I will utterly destroy you.
Yeah, I don't even care. And I totally understand what people mean when they're like, let's, everybody's social media is a fucking pity party and it's for clout and hype and whatever. They just want everybody to like their post and be like, oh no, you're great. Like don't be sad. But like honestly, the internet's full of just toxic shitlords. And sometimes you just kind of need people to like rally around you to be like, don't fucking listen to them. Like that's nice sometimes, like not gonna lie. But also like fuck, I get a lot of that. And it's utter it to me, it's just noise. It's just noise, right? I hate it. It's the guy in the conference who's like, my question is more of a comment. And I just really am about to be like, well, sir, with all due respect, at the start of the comment that has zero respect in it. Like,
It-
that's what I'm about to say. Like, that's mm.
I
Yes.
yeah, I can't imagine. That's why like I'm so like I don't fuck it, I'm gonna say it. You guys can
Do it.
clip it and take it out of context anyways. I'm so glad I'm not a woman. I went a year on Twitch and Twitter and Instagram before somebody was like, "You're a fucking swine," and blocked me. I don't know
A
a
long
single right? I don't know a
Yeah.
single woman who can make it a year on any social media platform without being harassed or bullied or sent a random dick pic. Like
Day one.
it-
Day one. Day one I joined Twitter.
I cannot imagine. Like
And like I'm not that person. So like when I dropped my bikini pic and I was like, "Hey guys, rare item drop." That's because anybody who spends any time around me knows that I dress like this. I wear button ups and polo shirts and sweaters, year-round sweaters. Okay? And, so I was just like, I mean, I'm at the pool, so yeah,
right?
like this is not going to happen again. Like,
Hmm.
well, also because I live in England, so
You gotta wait
yeah,
another year for the sun.
yeah. I mean, I didn't get this complexion, right, because I spend a lot of time in the sunlight.
Right.
And just this pasty, my ring light is on warm. Warm. Okay. So like so yeah, it's like one of those things. So in some ways you would be like, "Oh, I don't really like invite that sort of attention,"
Right.
right? I'm also not someone, and again, people can do what they want with their own time and their own bodies, but I'm not someone who sells my sexuality as a commodity, right? Look, I think people want to do that. That's their space. That's their creative avenue. That's up to them. Do I think we need Twitch X? Probably. Do I? Yeah, fine. Whatever, different discussion. But as someone who makes a joke, right? It's literally like on my Twitter headline, like, oh, I'm a girl that games with my clothes on. It takes the piss out of people who get fucking bent out of shape about girls gaming generally, girls gaming with or without their clothes on, which whatever, not their business. I'm like, but are you there?
Mm,
Are you subbed? Then like
right.
shut the fuck up. It's still it's content. Are you subscribed? Are you consuming it? Then like
Yeah.
don't be mad, bro.
I
Don't be mad.
yes. God, so much yes.
But at the same time, like for me as someone who and I just like posted a tweet about this yesterday because I get a lot of people. I know we were like trying to wrap up and now I'm just like still having a conversation. But I get a lot of people who come into my stream and I know that they're well-meaning and nobody's really like I've not had anybody be like really like challenging to me
Right.
overtly or anything. But I have a lot of people be like, "Oh, you bring some big dick energy." And I'm like, "Thank you." That normally is followed up with like, "Do you have a girlfriend?" And I'm just like, while could make some lucky lady very happy, no. I am an ally. I'm not a member of the LGBTQIA plus community. I happily stand in solidarity, but I don't have a girlfriend. Sorry to
Right.
disappoint you. Because I get a lot of people that are kind of like, I don't know, you seem kind of androgynous. You seem like you'd be bi. You kind of, and I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. Nobody's
No.
business. What? Because I wear fucking polo shit? Like, first of all, rude. A polo shirt is a practical article of clothing. Okay, like just enough buttons. Okay, and like if you need to put a jacket on it to walk into a meeting, you can. So like,
Right.
slow your roll. But yeah, so like I kind of deal with like a bit of that. I deal with the male in general response is that like, well, right. It tends to be pretty negative. They're like, well, you dress this way because you're not pretty or you're not skinny or whatever their reasoning, and then it typically also then kind of turns around to be something equally toxic. Normally, some sort of threat of essay warning, trigger warning, everyone. Uh, you know, I definitely have had the comment made to me, "I will rape the gay out of you," and I'm just like, oh, ban.
Hello and goodbye.
Yeah, thank you for coming to my party. Um, and
But I
yeah,
can't imagine
right?
the worst troll we've had is you suck at this game, fat ass. Like, ooh, ban. But
So scared. So scared.
I can't imagine not only saying that to somebody, but I can't.
Somebody threatening
Me?
you with like gratuitous sexual violence is such an escalation. Like,
I mean, I'm of the opinion that people like that who say things like that, like, here's I'm big. Like, I went to school for criminal justice, like mens rea, guilty mind. I'm sorry, you thought it, you said it. That's assault in the third degree. The only thing protecting you is the anonymity of the internet. You should be in prison for comments like that and saying things like that. Yeah, you're hiding behind your keyboard, but no, that's it, it's that shows criminal intent. There was an action. I mean, legally, if they said the same thing to you at a bar, standing in the room with you, which is arguably the same thing, that's prison. That is a felony. Okay. So sorry
Right?
that got
Right?
heavy, guys. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm gonna redirect that one before I get too far
Yeah.
down that rabbit hole.
Yeah. But that's why you don't want to be a girl, right? On social media, just generally. You're just like, just to just like tumble a version of where that conversation went. It's because the gentlemen here are glad that they're not girls.
Yeah.
In this space.
Right.
That's it. Long story short. Yeah. Yeah. It gets I wouldn't even, I mean, like, it's unfair even to say spicy.
Right.
It can be horrendous.
Yeah.
But do I think that those same issues within toxic masculinity also create problems for men in this platform? Of course I do. Because why? Sociology is complex
Yeah.
and
Well,
our
I mean,
relationships are complex.
there's examples of that too, and I don't want to drag any of that out. Also, we do have to get to our next segments. As much as I don't want to
Yeah.
stop
No,
this.
you guys like do. Oh yeah, that's right. This goes on beyond
Yeah,
whatever
yeah.
we're doing here. Yeah, my bad. My bad.
No, it's not though, because I love this. Now I understand. I know everyone in I'm gonna bring him up again. God, I'm turning into him with John.
This is
But
fine.
I know everyone in Jordan's stream is like, how are you doing this for so long? Every time we have one of these chats, with you, Camilla, Deadly Dill, we've had so many built up. We've had so many awesome people on so far where the conversations just go and go and go and go and go.
Mm.
Like, it is hard for me sometimes to stick to a schedule. I don't want to stop this, but
Yeah, hey,
We're-
look,
Nope.
we can break format if we want. It's our fucking show, dude.
that's right. We're breaking.
Jake is about to undermine you, where he's like, "Nope, we're taking this train off the rails."
I'm fine with
Alright,
it.
calm down.
He's executive producer. He's allowed to do that.
There we go. There we go.
But all right,
I'm just
with
along for
that,
the ride.
I will say one more time, and I will probably say it 80 more times. Thank you so much for coming on here and having this conversation. You will definitely be back as long as you're willing to spend the time on us, because I love this. And like I said, I have at least 5 more things that you talk to us about in DMs that I would love to have conversations with you about.
We got to like
So-
one bullet point, and then it just.
So David, do you basically have 5 more episodes for her? Is that what I'm hearing? 5 more?
mean,
I heard miniseries, Jake,
oh,
miniseries.
there we go, Jake. There's our. Ooh, you know what? I actually have an idea. I'll talk to you about it off stream. But we're gonna you know exactly what I'm talking about, Jake.
I think so.
Yeah. But I'm gonna go ahead and play our little sound. Unfortunately, my stuff's set up. You won't hear it, Khryseis. I apologize, but I'm gonna play this for the chat. And then we're gonna go into some shenanigans, get a little lighthearted here, and Jake's gonna have a game for us.
Our shenanigans are cheeky and fun.
Shenanigans! Shenanigans! Shenanigans!
I swear to
I like that
God,
you
I'll
bob
pistol
every
whip the next guy that says shenanigans.
You don't even bob like with the sound.
I'm just pretending I can hear it for the audience, David.
Nice.
I'm selling the illusion.
I love it. So, what's our shenanigan for tonight, Jake?
Okay, well, one of the topics that we didn't end up getting to is that you are a trained musician.
Yes. Yeah. Oh God. Yes. God, I
so-
was. Well, whole thing there. There's a whole thing there. But yes, I was a professional saxophone player for a brief time, about 6 years. It was not that brief.
I was gonna say 6 years is not a brief time,
Right? I was a brief
Oh.
musician in that I learned guitar for like a month. Okay, that's brief musician.
But based on that, and you being located in the UK, I've put together a little game that I have named Never Mind the Buzzcock Stew Electric Boogaloo, which is a
No.
reference for no one but me.
Jacob.
But essentially, what we are going to do is we're going to have a little contest between the three of you. A very sort of Family Feud-esque contest, I guess,
Ooh.
where you are going to try to tell me. Initially, I was going to like split it up between US and UK, but given that you've lived in both, I think we're just going to sort of combine them. But you're
That's
going to
fair,
try to
that's fair.
guess the top 10 selling artists/bands from both the US and the UK based on worldwide record sales. We're gonna go through. It is the point values are going to be in the reverse order of the ranking. So if you guess the number 1 artist, then that's worth 10 points. If you guess the number 10, that's worth 1 point. And we are going to go through either until we have them all, or you each have 3 strikes. You get 3 strikes, you are eliminated from the game.
You can just count me eliminated.
Is this of like all time?
All
Or-
time.
Oh my God. Okay. All right. For the record, I was a jazz musician, so I know that like "Kind of Blue" by Miles Davis is like the best-selling jazz album of all time. But like, okay, let's play. Let's play.
I don't know.
Here we go.
Why can't this be
Lose.
movies? All right, I can do movies.
Oh.
Because that
Wow.
wasn't relevant.
I know.
You're right. That's very
Oh.
fair. All right.
Uh,
So
So
Go
we will start with you, Khryseis. Go ahead and take a guess.
well, obviously I have to guess the Beatles.
Mhm.
Damn it.
You know, that I'm just like racking my brain. That one makes obviously the most sense. You would think that probably by album sales, right? Like there's no way they aren't like globally number 1, right? Maybe. Okay, what? Judge?
Hmm.
Yes, the Beatles are number 1 in the UK
Mhm.
and also worldwide by a massive margin.
Yeah.
Okay. Whew! I covered myself
that
for
is
round 1.
10 points for you. Kyle, why don't you go next?
I'm just gonna guess because I have no idea. Everyone everyone knows I know just about one song from every band, basically. That's it.
This is true.
That's it.
Yeah, but like if it's the best
doesn't
seller, then
even
like
have to
you're
be
the
the
man at
form.
karaoke.
It doesn't even have to be the most popular song. I just know one song. I'm gonna go with the Rolling Stones. Probably like number 3.
The Rolling Stones are on the UK list, but they are actually number 8, which is going to be worth 3 points for Kyle.
Great
I
guess,
also
though.
thought they would be higher. Yeah, that is a
Yeah,
solid
same.
guess.
I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I was shocked when you said that they were number 8 and only on the UK list. I was like,
This
Well, yeah, they're separate lists. I think the Rolling Stones are in the top 10, maybe regardless, but the UK list is very strong compared to like the just overall list. I will say that.
and it's
Oh, no.
it's strictly rock and roll, you said, or just
Nope.
y-
Nope, just top selling. Although it is based on record sales,
Right.
which includes CDs and but it is all physical media. So I will tell you that, and it is your turn, David.
Elvis.
Ooh.
Elvis, number 2 on the US list. That is going to be
Okay.
worth 9 points.
Well played. Well played.
Okay.
Now we're back to you, Khryseis.
Oh, okay. So, oh god, I played my number 1 card.
Right.
I think you played everyone's number 1 card.
Oh. Okay, so I'm gonna say maybe someone. Like Michael Jackson, maybe?
That is
Yeah.
as a very good answer, and Michael Jackson is on the US list at number 4. So that will be worth 6
Ooh.
points.
Gonna
Okay,
destroy
okay.
us.
Huh.
Back to you, Kyle.
Metallica.
We have our first X here. X noise from
What?
Family Feud. Metallica not on either list.
If you'd have warned me ahead of time, I could have gotten the buzzer sound, just FYI.
True. But I didn't think about it until Kyle got it wrong. Back to you, David.
Ooh.
Okay.
That's rough. AC/DC.
I will remind you, these are bands either from the US or the UK only.
Oh.
From here on out, I will count that as a wrong answer, but I'll allow this one just in case I wasn't clear on that.
All right.
AC/DC from Australia, so that they're automatically
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Akadaka.
Okay. No, I was just thinking that it was the US and English charts.
No, it is specifically bands from those places.
Oh.
Yes. I
That makes
apologize
it
if that wasn't clear.
That makes it harder for me.
Okay.
The Who?
Ooh, that's a good guess.
The Who, incredible guess. I assumed would be on there. Not on there. They're, I believe, number 20 for the UK list. They are not in the top 10.
Oh,
Shut the front
man.
door. Wow.
It is a crying shame.
Good though.
I am shocked by that news.
Yep, there's David's first strike.
Wow.
Back to you, Khryseis.
Okay, well, this is not great because we have played my only 2 moves. I'm gonna go with Elton John, right? How could Elton John not be on the list? That piano playing madman.
Elton John is on the UK list. He is I didn't number these like an idiot. 6 on the list. So that will be
Okay.
worth 4.
Solid.
You are definitely pulling ahead.
Ooh. Ooh, this is very high pressure. This is surprisingly high pressure.
Excellent. That's what I like to hear.
Oh my god.
Now we are back to you, Kyle.
I'm gonna go with Kiss.
It's a solid answer. I will, to give everyone here a little hint on that is the era that you should be pulling from, but Kiss is not on the list.
There's
Ooh,
two
the-
for me.
But your
That
kiss
is
is on my
strike
list.
2 for Kyle.
Bad music pun. I'm sorry. You can strike me for that.
Got it. Strike David for bad joke. What is your guess, David?
I feel like they didn't sell as much as I. See, here's the problem. There's big bands that were very influential from this period to me that I
Mhm.
don't think sold as much. Guns
That's
N'
fair.
Roses?
Guns N' Roses not on the list. That's strike 2 for
Ooh.
David.
Oh
See,
my
this is the
God.
problem. I have no clue how big they are everywhere else. Like, Guns N' Roses is like one of the top 5 bands we've mentioned for me.
Yeah, no, fair.
It's like classic
Very big in
rock,
America.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which the US side is a little more diverse in genre.
Okay.
Back to you, Khryseis. See if you can keep your streak alive.
I want to pick someone, but I'm hesitant because I don't know whether or not she's gonna count. But I guess I would say Madonna.
Ooh.
That is a fantastic guess. Shockingly, not in the top 10.
Wow. Okay.
Wow.
Well,
That is
there we
your
go.
first strike.
Streak broken.
Oh,
Back to you, Kyle.
Right? Right?
you know what? I'm gonna go with this, whether I get it wrong or not. I don't care.
Well, if
Nirvana.
you're wrong, you are eliminated.
Yep. Nirvana.
Nirvana not in the top 10.
Oh well.
Kyle is eliminated from the game. We have our first casualty
He also
Okay, I'm
apparently
just
smells like
gonna-
Teen Spirit.
with three whole points.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Okay. This is
That-
not stressful at all.
Yeah.
Back to you, David. You are also on the line here. Potentially eliminated.
rough.
Right?
I'm struggling to find like bands that would even count because I listen to stuff no one's ever heard of.
Well, this is your punishment for being a hipster, David.
You turned me into this. I used to listen to mainstream music.
Yeah, weird. The hold steady actually number 1.
No, it's not. Shut up. Oh, you know what? Though, just because I'm hoping that they're high on the list, because I know it'll drive Jake insane. Led Zeppelin. Or not Led.
Why would that?
No, sorry. Yeah,
Go
wrong
ahead.
one. I always confuse that. I think I'm still going to go with the guess of Led Zeppelin, but for whatever
Okay.
reason in my head, I always confuse that Jake hates Aerosmith, not Led Zeppelin. So I always get it wrong that you like Aerosmith and hate Led Zeppelin. I don't know
Actually
why.
seen Robert Plant in concert.
God, I love Led Zeppelin, David, and they are number 2 on the UK list. That's going to be 9
Okay.
points.
Woo.
There we go. Well done. Well done.
And we are back to you, Khryseis.
Oh my god. I have nothing. I have nothing.
That's
I'm
fair.
so stressed. I have to say Queen.
Ooh. Why did I not think of Queen?
Queen is a fantastic answer. Number 3 on the UK list. That's going to be worth 7.
Mm,
I take cares like 1, 2, and
yes.
3.
Hey,
Yup,
like
the top 3 are gone for the UK. Only number 2 is gone from the top 3 for the US.
Oh yikes.
Kyle's eliminated, so back to you, David.
Yeah.
What's left for the UK? Because oddly enough, I know better about UK music than I do US.
Exactly half of the UK list is gone.
And it's the top half, right?
Not quite. It's the top 3, then 6 and 8 are eliminated.
I should have been taking notes. I was not taking notes.
Right? Yeah, me either.
Study for this exam.
That's hard. Really popular in their time. I don't know how their sales would have gone. This is the problem of knowing better than American music. I'm gonna. Ooh, wait. I'm starting to recall bands. I'm gonna go with. I'm gonna take the safer bet and go with Aerosmith.
Aerosmith is on the US list at number 9.
Okay. Ooh, number 9. Cutting it
That'll
close.
be worth 2 points for you.
Oh my god, I'm so stressed now.
Hey, Jake, can I ask a
It
question?
is back to you. What's up, Kyle?
How many rappers are on that list?
That's a good question.
Yeah, how many rappers are on the list, Jake?
I'll tell you what. Since Kyle's eliminated, from here on out, on Kyle's turn, he's allowed to ask me a question to help you two.
Ooh, Kyle's a lifeline. I like
Yes.
it.
Yes. But it's not Kyle's turn yet. It is your turn, Khryseis.
Oh, okay. So you did tell us to like think outside of some of the genres that
For
we
the
had.
US list, especially. It's a
Okay.
fairly diverse. It's fairly diverse. It's not super, but
Mm. So I'm gonna say maybe like a country singer. So who's that guy with the hat who tried to have a weird other album type?
you're referring to Garth Brooks and I used to know his fake
There's-
name
I'll go
because
with
it's so
Garth.
bizarre.
I'll go with Garth Brooks for
That's
a shot at the
good
US
freaking
list.
guess.
Garth Brooks, number 1 on the US list. An incredible guess.
Yes. Also, I could just imagine him with that soul patch on the front of that album because it's obviously been like talked about on the internet that he like tried to hide his identity. And I was like, who was that singer with the hat? And I was like, I have no other way to explain this. He has a soul patch. Then I realized how many country singers that could be, and it was not helpful.
Chris Gaines, that was his fake
Yep,
name.
Chris Gaines. Yep. So
Yep.
what's I didn't want to say it because I was gonna guess that.
Oh.
The album that you cannot find of Garth Brooks is somehow the most iconic, and it's because of our grandmother. So
yeah.
most
Okay.
people don't know he has an album that you can't find. And it's the album with When the Thunder Rolls. And it's the like white and black checkered album. Like there's lots of people who have it still,
Mhm.
but you can't go get that album anymore.
Interesting.
Yeah, and that was the like most like when our grandma was the most into Garth Brooks was when that released. So I always, anytime I think or hear of Garth Brooks, I see that album cover. Also I hear the name Chris Gaines. But anyways,
I will say I'm pretty sure all Chris Gaines sales have been attributed to Garth Brooks at this point.
I would assume so.
It's no longer a mystery.
Kyle, it is your turn. Are you going to stick with your initial question, or do you have something else?
No, I want to stick with that initial question. I want to know how many rappers are on that list.
There are 0 rappers on these lists.
That does not surprise me.
0.
Ooh. I thought that maybe like Eminem might be on that list, might be on a list.
I feel like
He's
Tupac
probably too new.
I feel like Tupac probably would have surpassed Eminem for
don't think
total
so.
sales.
I think he's more iconic, but I don't think he's sold as well.
Oh, really?
Mhm.
I don't
Yep.
know. See, this is the problem. I don't know rap sales at all because, you know, to the people I knew who rap pirated it.
Yeah. Kyle, can you Google that while we're like in the process? Can you find out who has like the top rap sales of all time?
That would be
Yeah.
great.
Absolutely. David, we are back to you.
This might be where I get knocked out. Because I'm gonna take a risky bet here. I think it's a lower number on the UK list. The Monkeys.
Oh, Hard Day's Night. Good guess.
Yeah.
That is an interesting guess. Unfortunately, they are not on the list.
Damn.
David is eliminated.
Yeah. So I went with the Monkeys because I know they had for their time, they were in the top 10 best-selling records, like albums. So I was hoping they were able to continue that. I didn't know where that landed them in the I was shooting for like an 8 or 9.
Solid guess though. Again,
So-
solid guess.
So the top rapper is Eminem with the best
Is
sales.
he? Wow.
Dang.
227 million units sold.
Jesus.
Ooh. That's a
Followed by
lot.
Drake, Kanye West, and Jay-Z.
There we go then.
Okay. That makes sense.
Look how much we learned today.
Right? We love learning.
Learning.
Well, Khryseis, you have already won. So you have more points than David, and he has been eliminated now, and obviously more points than
Right.
Kyle with his 3. But would you like to try to sweep the board to see if you could get all of these now that the pressure of wanting to win is gone?
God. Okay. So you did also mention that a lot of these were kind of like from the same era.
Yes.
I guess maybe from the US list, I'll try the Eagles.
Eagles were number 3.
Why didn't I think?
Okay.
Man, I'm bad at this game.
Are they the Hotel California people?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Oh,
Another
okay.
iconic
Well,
song for me.
yeah. Okay, so here's one I'm like questionable about guessing, but like I'm gonna guess it. Oasis?
Oasis not on the UK list. It
Wow.
is a good guess, though. I like that.
What about Coldplay then? Because I'm just thinking like modern times for like maybe amount sold. And like they have some longevity, so maybe Coldplay.
That is understandable, and I did see Coldplay looking for this information on a similar list about like the top selling modern albums, but they are not on the all time.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. All right. Guys, feel free to jump in because I think I'm kind of resource tapped.
Johnny Cash.
Nope, no Johnny
No,
Cash.
he didn't sell well. He was very controversial in his time. He sold
Mhm.
better after he was dead than when he was alive.
Yeah, so okay, so can we have another hint maybe? Let's give us a little spooky hint.
I will say almost all of the remaining UK options are classic rock.
Interesting.
How many?
There is
pop
only
stars on the US
one
side?
current artist on the UK list.
Pink Floyd.
Adele.
Pink Floyd is on the list.
Good guess.
How many like pop stars are actually on the American US list? Yeah.
Depending on how you define pop star, I would say 2.
2.
Yep.
Taylor Swift.
No Taylor Swift.
Then it's got to be the Bieber.
No Bieber either.
What?
They're
Are
too-
there
have
You
pop
have
stars
to go
beyond
back
them?
further.
I think they're
Oh,
too
yeah.
new. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So then, are we
Yeah,
counting like a boy bands as like pop stars?
NSYNC.
I would. There are no boy bands, shockingly.
They die out too
Huh.
fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of like
They're momentary
and-
celebrations.
Yeah,
a bit
and
of
I
a
think
flashbang.
any band that like their heyday was like after the internet, it is a struggle to be in the top all time.
Yeah. Because
True,
people don't have to
true.
buy the records anymore.
Yep.
There you go.
My individual songs.
I have a guess. Where does
Okay.
Fleetwood Mac land?
Fleetwood Mac is fascinating because they are both a British and a US band, but they are on neither list. They're just outside of the
Really?
top 10. Yep.
Okay, because I thought of that and I was like, that's one tricky enough to intrigue Jake,
Yeah.
and two,
I wanted to include them, David.
Foo Fighters?
No.
No.
When you guys are ready, when you guys are out of guess, I will run through what's left.
What about ABBA?
I was just
No ABBA, but isn't ABBA from
Australia.
no, not Australia.
they're
I thought
Swedish.
they
They're
were
Swedish.
From, yeah, they're Swedish.
ABBA's
Swedish.
Swedish, yeah.
That's it. Okay.
What about
okay.
Journey?
They might be. No, Journey
Ooh.
either. That is a great guess, though.
Okay,
It is a crying shame Aerosmith is there and Journey is not. That's a travesty.
Okay, this is about to be ridiculous. Is Cher on the list?
Cher is not on the list.
Wow. Thank God.
Okay.
Wow.
I was shocked who the only one that I consider like a major like pop star, I guess aside from Michael Jackson, who is on the US list. It really confused me.
Okay, I need to know now. I need to know.
Yeah.
I feel like I
Yeah.
have squeezed my brain.
Okay,
I
that is
won,
fine.
so I'm
I
happy.
will run through. Yeah.
You
Oh yeah, you
destroyed us.
absolutely destroyed them, both of them.
Oh, that's a given.
So what's left is we have Billy Joel, George
Aw.
Strait, who's another big
Aw.
country star,
How did I not guess?
Barbara Streisand.
Son of a weasel, my mother
Wait,
would be ashamed
wait.
of me.
I'm the Jew. How did I not guess Barbara?
I'm surprised I didn't guess like
Uh,
Billy Joel. That's what
Well,
my mom listened to
was-
the most.
Yeah.
Billy Joel.
That and Nirvana. It's those
Billy
two.
Joel is my friend down on the corner. Oh wait.
Then we have number 8 for US. We have Mariah Carey.
That's that.
Right, I think of like Madonna is way bigger than Mariah Carey. I was kind of shocked she was so high
Thank
up.
you. Yes. I mean,
Maybe
Christmas
'cause-
album sales? I don't know.
Oh yeah, no, I can guarantee that's why it's that fucking Christmas song.
Like-
Oh yeah.
I don't mean to be a cynic, but like, people got to pay for that every year.
Hmm.
Yep.
I'm just saying, passive growth. Christmas comes around every year, like passive
Yeah,
growth.
And she also puts out a new Christmas album literally every year that like does super well.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then the last entry on the US list is Bruce Springsteen, the boss.
I
That makes
wouldn't
sense.
have guessed that. Actually, I would not have ever arrived at that point.
Not for record sales, no, me either. But it
Mm-mm.
makes sense.
Then
Oh.
for the UK list, what was left was Cliff Richard, which I was
Oh.
confused by because I don't know who that is.
Cliff Richard, really?
Yep, he is number 4.
No, thank you. Okay.
Then the next one is one I did not know was from the UK. It's the Bee Gees.
Oh, yeah.
Then the last two for the UK are the only contemporary artist on the UK list is Ed Sheeran. And the last entry is Genesis.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I went back and forth between Oasis and Genesis. I went back and forth. And I was like, I don't know which one I should guess. And then,
I also
But-
would have gone with Oasis.
right? But also, how has Ed Sheeran like outsold Coldplay over time? Like,
I will say his like rise onto the list because I initially found an older list before I found a current one for the UK. It was from I believe like 2015, and Ed Sheeran was not on the list.
yeah.
But on the 2021 list he was. So
hmm
apparently over the last 6 years he's just like continued to blow up.
Yeah.
And he knocked off
Yeah.
David Bowie, which I found very offensive.
That is offensive. David Bowie is the man.
Especially when you phrase it that way. I mean, Ed Sheeran making the rounds. Jeez.
I got
Rise.
irrationally angry with Ed Sheeran.
Reasonable. Oh, that was a good game. Thank you so much. That was super fun.
That,
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
that was fun.
Absolutely. I was like, oh no, because I just had this like flashback to my music history course where we had to be able to like identify like music by listening to like 4 bars of it and like tell people like what era it was from, the artist, like how it was like what it was originally composed on, like all this information. And I was like, excuse me, I've heard a total of like 64 notes over these 4 bars, and it was just a cacophony of sound. Baroque.
Yeah, no, I will fail that test every time because it's like I just listen to what I like. I don't know what
Yeah.
the band is. I don't know the sound. I just like it. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Fair.
no, I was like, oh no, because I was definitely not someone who was like listen to a lot of actually classic rock. So you guys were naming people, and I was like, okay, I know Aerosmith from the Disney World ride,
Right.
which now I think I've realized is at Universal, but it's in
Yeah.
Florida. This is fine. I was like, that's where I know Aerosmith from. I was just like, oh no, oh no. This is fine. This is fine.
Well, you did great.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
I got
you,
lucky because I went. I got lucky because I went first. Let's be honest. We were all gonna guess the Beatles.
That is true.
Yeah.
But I mean,
That was guest
Beatles.
privilege.
yeah, exactly.
You took
Huh.
number one off everyone's list.
Done. Done. All right, but bring me into this chaos. What is next?
Well, so there's a disclaimer that we have to do every
Yeah,
time.
every time.
Every time.
Every time.
The views and opinions expressed in Kyle's Chaos Corner do not reflect the views and opinions of Let's Play Death Ray. We have no control over this. We do not control this. And Jake and I have no part of this. If he offends you, I will physically slap him if you want. Just because it's what we do.
I'll redeem the points just to smack you then, David.
That's fair. That's fair. But all right, Kyle, what do we have for Kyle's Chaos Corner?
So today I have facts of the world.
Oh no. All right.
So I just because normally I tailor it to like that person. I take what they like and then just throw a hardball off wherever, see where I land. But this time it's like, you know what? I'm just gonna do something that's not related to her at all.
Perfect.
She's a political science major.
I know that's what I before I even got any of that information, I was like, you know what? I'm doing that. And I saw that. Right.
This is fine. This is fine. Just casually with a master's degree about have to like be like, oh, publish or perish? No. It's
So-
actually Kyle's Chaos Corner that is going to be your final test.
So all these facts are either 2001 or 2019.
I have to like guess the year.
No. I'm gonna straight up tell you the year that this fact was taken from, because
Oh,
it
okay.
was from a survey done for the world.
Okay, cool.
What are
So
So are we trying to do something here? Just
right?
I'm
Like
gonna
that's
ask
I'm
you
also
something.
confused.
So I'm gonna ask
Chaos.
you a question,
Okay.
and then you can get it right. You can guess it. All that. That's fun.
So you're gonna ask her a question and she has to then tell you the fact. So it
Yeah,
could be
the-
like, for instance, like, never mind, that was an offensive question. I'm just gonna stop because I'm apparently more chaotic than Kyle.
So also all these facts, I didn't just look at one website. I went through and looked at like about 5 of them for each of them, just to make
Since
sure
we
it's
gave him
the
shit about
actual-
his research last time.
Yep. It's like
Oh my god.
I looked at the first thing. I picked the first one. So we'll start
Oh.
with what is the most hated country in the
I
world?
And this can be either from 2001 or 2019.
This is current.
Oh, wait, so
This is
what's the year thing
2021.
about?
This is currently the most hated country in the world.
But before we get into that, answering that, I would like to point out you started this segment being like it'll be between 2001 and 2019.
No. I told you the
it's
facts.
from 2021.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's the real chaos. Is none of the rules matter.
Like, are there rules? No rules. No rules. All right. Well, I
Trying to grab the
mean,
current information. You guys are all so mean to me.
Yep. This is gonna eventually just turn into Kyle's abuse corner.
Yeah.
I mean, I
Chat already
guess
turned it.
I guess that like what my feedback to this is that just like who is surveyed and not all data is good. But okay, so I guess depends on who's voting. It's going to be a controversial answer, but I guess do I want to say America in a room full of Americans?
Oh,
To an
we don't
audience
care.
full
We
of
live here. We
Americans?
know what it is.
Yeah, go for it.
All right, I'm
It
gonna
might
say
be the top of my list.
yeah, I'm gonna say America because we've only just emerged from a really particularly difficult era and we
Right.
haven't really recovered. But I will also say that I have a backup answer, which is Pakistan.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say
Ooh, that's-
UK, France, but
Yeah.
So US is correct.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
gut instinct.
The second one I found that was the top of all a bunch of the list were Iraq. I was like,
Yeah.
wow, okay,
that's
yeah.
fair.
But,
We could also argue that as a US construction, but that's fine.
yeah.
Well, that's
That's
yeah.
why I kind of
I mean, that's
Yeah.
I kind of skipped over it.
look. When you go and you spend a lot of money to say, "Hey, you hate this guy," everyone's like, "Yeah, we hate that guy. Give me that $1 billion." Like,
Yeah, you're right. We also hate that guy, of course. Yeah, that guy's an asshole. What do you mean you're buying drinks? Yeah, that guy. Fuck that guy. I mean, that's literally what happened.
I
No,
know.
I only said Pakistan because, like, obviously there's an ongoing and long-term hate relationship with India, and also if they have a difficult relationship with China. And I was like, so who's voting on this? So like,
You've also got to include Americans hating their own country.
I mean, that's fair. Let's be honest, guys. So, yeah. All right. Next question, Kyle. Next question.
The longest ruling non-royal national leader today.
So, the longest ruling but non-royal leader.
Yep.
That's a good question. And it's just about their individual longevity. So we're not talking about like a dynasty, which they're not technically royalty.
Their current ruling reign, basically.
Okay, so they just been in
From the
charge the
time they
longest.
took control to present day.
Okay. Oh, that's a really good one because it has to be somewhere that is stable enough for them to maintain power without it, having to swap seas every 3 to 5 years. Casual assassinations, coup d'etats, military juntas. And I guess we could argue that Putin's transition from president to prime minister back to president back to me still president means that he didn't really ever leave power. So like maybe but I'm definitely going to be missing somewhere really obvious. They got to be old. But they also have to be again small enough and stable enough to maintain it. You know what? Fuck it, bucket. I'll go with Putin because that man is just never gonna die.
I mean, a lot of people do believe that. But it's Yovari Mussolini, Mussolini. I can't say his fucking name right. From Uganda. It took
Interesting.
rule from in July 29 to 1986, and he's still alive today, ruling.
So he took power in '86.
Yep.
And is
Hmm. I find that shocking.
Yeah, considering
Like undisrupted. Like he didn't like lose power and then like get it back.
Never lost power.
Interesting. All right, that's fascinating. I'm putting that in my little book of facts.
What you were saying, stable? I looked over and I just looked. The Congo Wars, Rwanda Civil War, other Great Lake region conflict, rebellion of the northern Uganda.
It's fine. The entire Rwandan genocide in '94. Like, this is fine. This is fine.
Look, it's real easy to stay in power when no one can reach the palace. You build it on a hill. It's fine.
This is fine. This is where we're at. All right, we learned something today. I also wasn't expecting it to be Uganda when you got through his name, but we live and we learn.
I would
Second,
Google.
it was like
I would Google.
Mussolini. I was like,
Yes, I've got some news for you from the 40s, Kyle.
I was like, this is taking an unexpected turn. All I can think of, have you guys seen that terrible movie, Iron Skies, about the Nazis living on the dark side of the moon?
Yeah.
No,
That's
but what?
So if you have not seen Iron Skies, FYI, there is a second movie, but the first one is the best. It's like a weird B movie, but it's like a cult classic in certain circles. Like, you should go watch it. It's called Iron Skies, and it needs to be on your list.
Okay.
Okay.
There you go. So when he was like, Mussolini, I was like, I believe it. I've seen Iron Skies. Anyway, continue. That is not a spoiler. It takes an unexpected twist.
Oh, I love it. That's great.
Okay. So the most visited country in 2019.
Ooh, in 2019.
China. Oh no, I'm just kidding. I'm sorry. I'm kidding.
Just before the start of the pandemic, I guess so. This is just going to be like general traffic. So you also have to just include like which countries have pretty massive just international airports and who's flying in and out of there for connecting purposes. So, for example, London Heathrow can usually is the first connection point from if you're flying from the US into Europe if you can't get a direct, something like that. Most visited country. But I've also seen Brits abroad, and like we go to some real shitholes. So like, and I also know how much like, okay, I don't mean this to be derogatory, but it's just based on my personal observation that there are a lot of organized tourist groups out of Asia that love to come to Europe. So, I'm going to say France, 2019 most visited country.
And you'd be correct, with 9 million people visiting.
There we go. Little bit of logic. Win the game.
Yeah.
Woo! Mussolini, I was never gonna guess.
Right.
I was outside my remit. I couldn't work that one out. I was like, oh yeah, what? Excuse me? We brought him back from the moon? That's what I heard.
Okay. So the next one is, what country has the most population online?
Ooh, online?
Is it the like highest number or like the highest?
So it's like
percent?
literally the peak they hit, the amount of people in comparison to everyone else.
I'll be right back. Continue. Chaos corner right here.
I'm gonna say Japan.
No, it is China
Interesting.
with
Okay.
854 million.
Yeah. I mean, they control their own. They basically run their own circuits, right?
Yeah.
So, despite people, using VPN and obviously also hardware to, disguise, what their computer is accessing and things, the reality is that, they basically have their own internet for the most part.
They control all information going in and out.
Yeah, so I guess in my mind, I unfairly like if I'm honest with myself, I quite unfairly discredited them because I don't always feel like that it's as authentically connected as the rest of us are. So it's the same, Russia was trying to, make their own internet, but they're just woefully inept. But yeah, no. I mean, a handful of them are making more than enough trouble. Okay, for the rest of us, thank you very much. But yeah. So I put that on myself. I unfairly discounted China as a contender for that because I was like, but they're not really plugged in. Like if you've got one room on the rest of your house that you maybe keep on a separate grid for personal reasons, personal only reasons that you aren't selling to anyone else reasons. I'm just saying, like, does it really count if it's not actually wired into the rest of your house? I'm just saying, but continue.
Don't worry, David. We'll
David's
just leave you in the
face.
dark right there.
It's
What
like,
did I come back to? It's frightening.
Okay. Next question is, what is the smallest country in the world? I want us.
ooh. So I guess is this landmass, population, combination? What are we?
Well, basically, area covered is basically what it is, from what I could tell from the information given.
Okay, well, it's probably either going to be the one tucked away in South Africa or somewhere like Luxembourg. I'm gonna say, oh my god, why is my brain leaving me? Probably because it's 5:30 in the morning. But I'm gonna say, yeah. Let's just.
This one surprised me.
I think it starts with an L, but I can't quite remember the name. Yeah, I'm gonna say the one that's basically like in the middle of South Africa. No, I take that back. Africa is a big fucking continent. I pull that back. It's gonna be somewhere tiny in Europe. Oh god,
That's fair.
because Europe is small. Perspective is important. Like, it does not look the same on all of our Western maps as it does in the real world. Okay. Yeah, somewhere tiny in Europe. So, oh god, that should be a rock somewhere like fucking Gibraltar. I swear to God, if it's Gibraltar, it's not Gibraltar. But I'm just saying. All right, just go on and tell us.
Vatican City.
Shut the fuck
God
up. That's
damn.
not a
Come on
it's
now.
an independent city-state.
Yeah, but
That's
is
cheating.
it
It's
really,
an independent
though?
city-state. It's still considered a country on its own, surrounded by
Cheese.
Rome.
Cheese.
It-
Cheese. That's not even good cheese. That's not like the Howder that, like, when you go to a fancy restaurant and you get mac and cheese and they've made Howder mac and cheese and you're just like, okay, I see what you did here. This
Right.
was like,
This is the cheese you have to cut the mold off of to eat.
yeah.
Yeah, except you eat the mold part of this one.
Yeah, this is like you have to chew your way through the fucking rind, right? Like, you don't even get a choice. Like, oh, blue cheese, sir. I heard you ordered blue cheese. Yeah, and then he just it's the mold rolling its way in and speaking to you because that's how alive it is. Oh god, that's a cheap one, Kyle. That is a cheap one. I
do
know
think
they get a spot at the UN tables. They get special little blah 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 blah. Gross.
So, disclaimer there. I thought Vatican City was still part of Italy. I didn't realize it was its own city-state.
Yeah, it is.
Just
But,
It's like
surrounded by Rome.
here's what it's like. No, hang on.
like-
I have the perfect analogy for what the Vatican City. Do you know that, like, failure to launch kid who's too brosif to admit that he couldn't make it on his own, so he lives in his apartment in his mom and dad's basement, still getting fed by them, and like they still pay for the electric and internet and everything, but he's totally on his own. That's what Vatican City is, Kyle.
100%. 100%. And even more so because obviously, the Catholic Church keeps all of their billions and billions and billions of dollars worth of assets, but they still fucking mooch off everyone else. That's fine. That's fine. So like Brochacho over here is like, got his PS5 on like release day. Okay. And like has a computer that he doesn't play and a chair that he expensive gaming chair that he doesn't sit in. And like his mom still does his laundry.
Well, there goes our Catholic audience.
This is fine. Am I wrong?
No.
To be fair, I could have alienated all the Christians and brought up Hobby Lobby and Iraq when those two things came up, but like, I was feeling generous. It's fine. It's not like the Justice Department didn't seize all those antiquities. It's fine.
You know how big the South is? I might want those viewers.
Don't get me wrong. I fucking shopped at Hobby Lobby, so like, until one day I was literally like on my phone, like I was literally checking out. I was on my phone. I had like my little metal wall plate and whatever. I was a fucking homeowner, so like I had to put shit on the walls. And I'm just like, I'm scrolling through and I see that basically like their CEO has been, like had over by the Justice Department. They've seized all this stuff in like an antiquities raid and they're like returning like this Gilgamesh tablet. And I was like checking out of Hobby Lobby and I was like, I am part of the problem. Oh my god. Oh my god. And so I was just there and I was just like having this crisis and she just like looked at my face. She was like, is everything okay? And I was like, mm-hmm. And just like kept on checking out while I was like stood there in like, my leather boots and my sweater with my scarf and my Starbucks and a fucking Hobby Lobby. And I was like, what have I become? I was just like, I was every Elizabeth to ever live in the South, ever, in autumn. Yeah. Yeah. Like, I definitely rode horses growing up, and I looked the part. Like, that's what had just happened. And I was just stood there with my fucking reusable cup, right, with my Starbucks in it, with my checking out at Hobby Lobby, right, in my leather boots, and my scarf, my hair done and my nails done, reading this article about Hobby Lobby robbed the Middle East of antiquities, and I was like, fuck. That was my inner monologue.
Oh my god. I love
in
it.
that moment.
Oh.
I did still buy my wall art, but I
Yeah, I
did
bet
feel
you
bad
did.
about it.
I
bet
do
you
declare.
Yeah. I was just like, shit, we're in it now.
Oh, I love it.
Okay.
Next fact.
The most technical advanced country in the world.
I guess I would say, like, what is our metric for that? Like, is this like how many? So when they measure this kind of stuff, it's like, what's our literacy rate? How many universities do we have? How many people work in STEM fields? Like, it's a weird thing to measure. So, like, I'm not gonna guess. I just kind of want to hear the answer, unless either of you guys want to guess.
I think it's which country has the Gundam, right? Like,
That's true. Japan has a Gundam. They win.
So on one of the lists I was looking over, Japan was the top one.
because they have a Gundam.
Well, it definitely also has to do with like how many people own computers,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
How many people have access, right, to the internet, right? So how much of your population could be plugged in? Like I said, like what's their literacy rate? Like what is their university rate like all those sorts of things go into like how we decide, like from a developmental perspective, like how developed or advanced a state is. And like those are the types of things that like I look at. I'm just like, oh well, how many people own computers? Like that's relevant. How many of those computers can be plugged into the internet? Right? How many of those places don't suffer power cuts that then obviously limit their access? Like all these types of things where I'm like, all right, well, how many of these people have the literacy to use their computer? That's another important step. Like those sorts of things. Florida's
So
out.
the answer I came up with after looking a few of them over is Germany.
I'd say that's fair because especially after their like energy, they had like an energy vend initiative, right? which is basically where they went around trying to modernize a lot of their like more rural countryside with green energy, and they just really like plugged people in a way that they didn't have access to. That's interesting.
Well, I think with
Followed
the
by South Korea, Singapore.
Yeah, I'm also not surprised by that, really.
Yeah.
Just because of the population density. So, like in Seoul, I think there are probably like 11 million, maybe close to 12 million people now living in the capital in Seoul. Other than that, you have Busan on the coast, you have Incheon. But like as far as like who lives in between any of those spaces, it's very sparse. So like you do have very like really dense like hubs, right, of kind of human investment and interaction and energy, right? But then like beyond that, it's not like you have to worry about reaching like Farmer Joe, um, who is like mad that he even had to get dial up and is like angry that his home phone doesn't work anymore, even though his like cables were laid in the 50s. Like it's a different type of space, because also even in those rural areas where they are like growing food and stuff, oftentimes there are like apartment complexes that are owned by kind of like a conglomerate company that everybody lives in, so that complex will also have their own like restaurants and cafes and gyms all kind of in a single unit, because literally they have to be like their own little mini tank city, because there's nothing like that. They'd be like 3 or 4 hours, which is super impractical for a lot of them from like the nearest city. So you end
Huh.
up with these like little like population hubs that kind of all live in essentially a single building, as a unit, which is pretty fascinating actually. So
Hmm.
yeah, they're like their own little mini ecosystems. Pretty cool. Huh, now we know. Yeah.
right, that's awesome. That's super intriguing, actually.
Mhm,
Did not know a
mhm,
lot about that.
mhm.
All right.
Well, just wait till you get to learning about the Asian financial crisis. So like when you're like you said you're studying for a political science degree, right? So when you have one, yeah, the Asian financial crisis like revolutionized the way that tech and industry and the economies were all integrated in Asia, because they used to have this massive vertical integration, right? So in Japan they were called Zaibatsu, in Korea they were called Chaebol, and basically they controlled the entire vertical chain, right? Which is hugely problematic, because if you've got like one system that goes down, like you don't have an alternative. So it has this massive knock-on effect.
Right.
So yeah, when there was like a
Hmm.
currency crisis in Southeast Asia, there was a terrible knock-on effect throughout the rest of Asia. And hence they suffered a financial crisis not dissimilar from the Great Recession that we experienced in 2008. But like 10 years before that.
Hmm.
But like no one cared because it was Asia, except for like people who were like in markets and stuff. Then we cared a lot.
Yes.
Okay. Well. So last question.
Hmm.
It 2020, country
Ooh.
with the most natural disasters. No,
Okay, so I'm actually gonna guess somewhere in the Middle East. Um, because they actually have a huge amount of seismic activity there. So I guess we have to qualify like how big a natural disaster is, because obviously like the US has Tornado Alley, right? The West Coast is plagued by issues from, like tectonic plates, right, where the Rockies are. So like not gonna
earthquakes
lie, you
always.
also have hurricane season. Like
And fire
let's be
season.
honest. Yeah,
And
just like
current going through that.
everything's on fire in California. Yeah, so like I'm just saying like the US is kind of a top contender for me.
That's
um
fair.
I'm just saying. But yeah, I would only pick somewhere in the Middle East because they have a ton of seismic activity. Um but I guess yeah, God, weirdly, I guess I'll go the US. Like that's a shit show, but yeah, I'll go the US.
So yes, you were picked basically first and second, because U.S. has 20,
Mhm.
Indonesia had 19.
There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, again, I
Hey.
mean they're on the Ring of Fire, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
So the Ring of Fire in the Pacific.
Yeah.
So yeah, like
That's
so
wow.
that's bad luck. I mean, it's not luck. It's just
I-
if you're
Bad
born there, that's
positioning.
bad luck.
Location, location, location.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Oh,
See, these were fun. Look how much we learned. Thank you so much, Kyle.
oh, that's awesome. That was your last one, Kyle?
Yep, that was it.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on. We greatly appreciate it. This was a ton of fun. We're definitely gonna have to have more conversations because this spilled over quite a bit, but I love it. These sort of natural conversations are exactly what I love to have.
Yeah.
So, but anyways, tell everybody once more, just real quick, where they can find you, and we will lead it out.
All right, you guys can check me out for more conversations like these, a little bit lighter, a little bit heavier, and anything in between over at Khryseis0529 at Twitch. And welcome to follow me as well on Twitter or Instagram for even more insights into what's going on in this space. And I'd love to hear from you guys. So hit me up. Thanks so much.
Yeah, do it. Go follow her. She's awesome. You guys have been amazing. Thank you for hanging out with us, guys. And we'll see you next time. All right, guys. Thank you so much for sitting here and watching the whole video. We greatly appreciate you. Make sure you subscribe, click the bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. And if there's any content creators that you want us to bring on the show, make sure to tag them in the comments down below. Next time.